Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another Left 4 Dead 2 ranking video. In today's ranking video, I'm going to be ranking the Left 4 Dead Common Infected. Now, personally for me, I never thought I would make this video because I didn't think I could honestly rank the Common Infected. I ranked the specials, and I've also ranked the uncommons, but I've never ranked the commons specifically because I didn't think they were that different and they were only just simply cosmetic. However, as the series has evolved, I have been willing to do more videos, such as the cosmetic theme ones, and that is why I think that I'm finally comfortable now approaching this topic. Plus, also as well, my one Twitch and Discord mod, Zoe, who has been featured in many videos before, has been requesting that I do this specific ranking for over a year. So Zoe, I promised you about a couple weeks ago that I would finally get around to this topic, and now I am doing it, my friends. So thank you for your patience for so long, but I hope you finally end up enjoying me ranking every single common infected from Left 4 Dead from worst to best. Now, for those that are at home right now thinking I'm going to be ranking every single individual common infected and just going to be ranking them in accordance to their colors or their shapes and sizes, I am not going to be doing that. Don't worry, I'm not going to be like, ooh, this one zombie's great, but I like this one because it's a slight shade of dark gray. No, I'm not going to do that, don't worry. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm going to be ranking them in accordance to a little category that I have assigned them into. So, miniature small groups. An example of this would end up being street clothes zombies versus military attire zombies, or police zombies versus wedding themed zombies from the ones that are on the passing. That is kind of what I'm alluding to here. But now that we understand the rules of the game, and now that we know what we're going to be doing going into this ranking video, let's finally rank all the common infected in Left 4 Dead from worst to best. So coming in at the very last spot, this is going to be what I call the civilian zombies. Now, this is going to end up being all the zombies that are essentially wearing just casual street clothes. They are not wearing any particular serious attire. They are not in a ranking of authority. They are just going about their everyday before they ended up dying. So they're going to be wearing t-shirts, jeans, sweatpants, basically your normal stereotypical attire that you would see out in the open world. And the reason why I put these at the very bottom is because these zombies, in my opinion, are the least threatening. They're the most generic, basic zombie you're ever gonna see ever. It's boring, it's bland, and it's nothing new. When it comes to the other zombies that are going to be on the list, they're not necessarily that special, but just by simply wearing different clothes, they tell more of a backstory, and it really makes you think about some of the other ones in comparison to just the average Joe that's just wearing his normal gray polo. You know what I mean? It's not fun to look at a zombie that looks just completely and utterly just bland. That's really what they are. Is the street zombies are just bland. They don't have anything significant about them. They're very forgettable, and they're just in the background so I can shoot them. Coming in at the next spot here, this is going to end up being what I like to call the pilot zombies. Now, for the pilot zombies, this is not going to end up being the ones that you end up having be the dead bodies of the chopper pilot when you end up getting rescued. This is instead going to be more rather the zombies that you would find at the airport on Dead Air. Now, these zombies are wearing basically the captain's attire. They are the ones that will be navigating a plane, and it really makes you think more detailed about this zombie than a normal civilian zombie. You can't help but just think, being like, ooh, I wonder what it was like to be at the airport when you died. Maybe it was a lot more traumatic or a lot easier because you were able to escape and get onto a plane, or maybe they even died on the plane. Who really knows? It makes you ask a question, and that's why it's more interesting. Whereas with the common infected, when a lot of them just try to attack you, you're really not thinking these things. Okay, now we move on to the wedding zombies. Now, the wedding zombies, I think, look the most cosmetically appealing. Now, that is subjective, but I think that just anybody, no matter who they are, looks really nice in a really well done tuxedo or a dress. Now, yes, I understand that these are walking corpses. I mean, how good can a corpse look in a tuxedo and a dress? But I think that they look pretty good, to be honest. If I were to be finding a zombie out in the open, even if I saw it in a tuxedo or in a dress, I'd be like, damn, that's a nice dress, or damn, that's a nice good tuxedo. And I probably would be like, you know what? I might actually just snatch this off the corpse because it's just a legitimately good outfit. and this is connected to who the zombie is a person, and also makes you think, what was life like before them? Now, a lot of people probably more rather think of the wedding dress witch, but the common infected are still very relevant to that area that's on the passing. Those were probably all the witch's family members and friends, which really is depressing if you actually think about it that way, because the zombies that are just there can be just zombies. But if you give it that meaning, it's like, damn, that's emotional. That's very, very sad. And that's something that I think that these zombies do a really good job at conveying, which is just the feeling of loss. It essentially goes from the vibe of a wedding, which is supposed to be cheerful and happy, to a equivalent of a funeral, which is just the exact opposite vibe and is extremely sad. And this is done by literally just wearing a tuxedo or dress. This is just me making a random observation, but has anyone honestly ever had the same thoughts? Because legitimately, I think this periodically when I'm on the passing, and if it's raining and the mood's just right, it makes it one of the most depressing maps in the entire game. Alright everybody, so for the next spot here, we have the hospital zombies. Now for the hospital zombies, this includes the patients and also the staff. Now for these zombies, I want to end up specifying something about them. You might just think that they're just normal zombies like any of the other ones. You're probably thinking to yourself being like, John, why are these ones more special to you? If it's just cosmetic, wouldn't the wedding zombies be in front of them? Wouldn't any other zombies be in front of them? They kind of are just bland. It's not exactly about color scheme, guys, or even just their outfits. It's the little things. Like their IDs on the staff zombies, where you can end up seeing a little bit of their original features before they got mutilated and destroyed in their zombie form. You saw the person that they once used to be, and it kind of makes it more haunting that way. The passing zombies are pretty depressing, thinking about just a family and friends group just dying at someone's wedding. But the hospital zombies are not only depressing, but they're creepy. It's really disturbing to think about the idea of dying alone in a hospital already, but I can't imagine dying in a zombie-infested hospital. And it's also scary to imagine what it would be like to be in that situation, patient or staff. I just can't imagine dying that way. I would feel like I was Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead if he didn't escape. And that just sounds like something I'll never want to imagine having happen to me in real life, ever. Just ever. I can't even, man. That just would be horrifying. Now we end up having, for our next spot here, the police zombies. Now, I'm not exactly talking about specifically the ones that you end up finding on the Parish on Coldstream with the batons and the riot gear. I'm talking about just normal police zombies. Because the police zombies, if you think about it, are a very big importance to the story. Because in the zombie apocalypse, typically the normal people will fall first. And then usually after that, it will be the authority figures slowly over time. Now, the police are basically the first line of defense when it comes to a threat. They're the ones roaming the streets and everything. And having them be walking around as zombies is scary because that means that the threat has gotten so bad that your local police force is ceased to exist. And now they are just joining the zombie army. So all that would be left is like the military, which would mean that pretty much your chances of survival are getting slim to none. There's only so many people left on the earth, which is really, really scary because it means that you're losing. The world is ending. And that's why I think that the police zombies have more significance than anybody else, because it means that you're slowly losing the world. And now we reach number 1. So for what I put as the number 1 common zombie skin, or common zombie in general in Left 4 Dead, this is gonna go to the military zombies. So, just like the police zombies and all the other zombies that come before them, this is just once again a normal human being. However, though, the fact that it's the military is alarming because the military is like the last line of defense. If the military is dead, the world is basically screwed. Because the only other higher authority left than the military is basically God. And if there's a god zombie, then we're especially screwed. But seriously, think about it. What is left if the military is gone? Nothing. Literally nothing. I mean, sure, you might have a monarchy and you might be like Great Britain where you have a king or a queen, but if your military is gone, who the heck is left? Who's gonna man the men on the front lines? Who's going to charge into battle? Who's going to save other people? There's nobody. And when I see a zombie in a military outfit, it really makes you feel like you're in a zombie game. This is one of the things that was Left 4 Dead 1's greatest advantage when it came to making the atmosphere, and why a lot of people look back on Left 4 Dead 1 as the more scary game in the series, is because these types of zombies conveyed the feeling of loneliness. Think about it. Really think about it for a second. Why was Left 4 Dead so scary in comparison to Left 4 Dead 2? You felt alone. In Left 4 Dead 1, we saw civilians, hospital staff, police, and even the whole entire military just crumble, cease to exist. And other than a select few survivors that were just immune from the virus, the world was gone. That's the most haunting thing of all. And that's why the military zombies are the best common infected in the entire game. In this ranking video, I'm going to be ranking something that is probably something you don't remember, which is going to end up being the Left 4 Dead Xbox 360 Avatar Awards. What are these for those of you that don't know? Well, if you ended up having an Xbox 360 at the time, you will remember that there used to end up being avatars on that console. This was a way that Microsoft was trying to compete with Nintendo's Mii's, which were their virtual avatars. Now, the Xbox 360 avatars had a multitude of cool features, and one of these was in-game rewards that you would end up earning that you can end up giving to your avatars. And the Left 4 Dead Xbox 360 version allowed you to receive some of these said rewards. Sadly, you can no longer end up receiving these because you would actually have to play legitimately on an Xbox 360, and I feel like that the Xbox 360 has gone the ways of the past. Even though I love that thing, it is my favorite console of all time. I do think that these things should be recognized, and just for bringing them back for old time's sake, I thought it'd be really cool if we ranked them from worst to best. If you guys end up enjoying today's episode, please end up dropping a like, comment, and subscribe to show your guys support. Let me know by the end what was your personal favorite award that you ended up getting, or maybe even not getting, when you played on the Xbox 360, and let's get on with today's video. Alrighty guys, so coming in at the very first spot, in this case being the last spot, this is going to end up being the Avatar Award of Rochelle's shirt. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, being like, oh, well, it's a shirt of one of the actual characters. Why is this at the last spot here? The reason why I put this at the last spot is because it's the challenge that is linked to redeeming this shirt. The challenge that is linked to redeeming this shirt, in my opinion, doesn't match the reward. There is a different reward for a different challenge that will be coming up later on in the list that I think is more fitting and honestly should be switched so that way it makes more sense. Because as it stands right now, the current in-game challenge that you have to do to unlock Rochelle's shirt is to rescue Nomchansky from Dark Carnival. Now, it's not exactly a bad reward for this particular shirt, but for what's coming up later on the list, I just think that it'd be better if they were to swap, because it would just make simply more sense. Some rewards need to be worth the grind that you put in, and if there's just going to end up being a better reward for a hypothetically easier challenge, why not go for that one instead, or just make the other challenge easier? Overall, the challenge is fun, and the reward is at least obtainable. I just think that they're really not balanced and should be changed, but the Xbox 360 is decades old at this point. It's not going to change, but that would just be what I would do personally if the Xbox 360 was still the most modern Xbox. Okay, so coming up next on the list is going to end up being another t-shirt, and this is going to end up being the one of the Left 4 Dead logo. This is the one with the infamous hand design. Now, this shirt is really good, and I do like it. It does seem pretty clean, and if this was a legitimate t-shirt, I would wear it, and it is pretty fair on how you unlock it. You end up unlocking it for just simply killing 10,000 infected. The challenge and the reward complement each other nicely, and if you do have this shirt, you should end up wearing it in my personal opinion. Alright, now we have got the Left 4 Dead 2 hat. So this is just going to be a gray baseball cap that has just Left 4 Dead 2 on it, and I like this because it's clean, it's simplistic. I would wear this once again if this was an actual baseball cap. Now, traditionally, I don't wear a lot of hats. I end up wearing them pretty infrequently, but when I do, I really like a baseball cap because those are the most comfortable in my opinion, plus also they remind me of when I played baseball in my childhood, because I really do love baseball even still as an adult. And the challenge to unlock this reward is very nice because it's simplistic and straightforward. All you have to do is just play any chapter of the passing campaign and this will be awarded to you. So as long as you have the DLC, because it does cost money on Xbox, you can end up getting this hat, although it's just up to you if you personally want to pay for the DLC if you happen to just be an Xbox player. Okay, so for the next item on this list, we have got Ellis's shirt. Now, Ellis is my second favorite character in the entire series, and he also is my favorite in Left 4 Dead 2 specifically. Now, for Ellis's shirt, this is probably the most famous thing about him other than his hat, and the shirt does look great on the avatars. I think it looks really nice. It's one of my personal favorite shirts. Now, for this shirt, what you have to do to unlock is you have to win 10 games of versus. Now, that doesn't exactly sound the most easy, especially nowadays when it's kind of hard to fill up lobbies on some old Xbox 360 games, but Left 4 Dead 2, since it has backwards compatibility amongst the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, and the Xbox Series consoles, the game is still alive and well, and you can end up getting a versus game pretty relatively of ease. I think eventually a lot of players will unlock this if they just haven't already, but if you are a Left 4 Dead fan and you were originally playing on the Xbox 360 specifically, you probably already have this by now, and I do like to believe this is one of the more popular shirts. Okay, and for the last t-shirt here on the list, we have got the original Left 4 Dead 1 logo shirt. So with the Left 4 Dead 2 logo shirt, in my opinion, that's not as clean as this one. I like the black with the red. The colors just complement each other very well. I even like it from an artistic standpoint because it's really good for artwork. In fact, I even use it all the time in my thumbnails because it just makes the thumbnails pop just that much better. But yeah, I really like this because the black and the red complement each other very well. It looks really nice, and it does give you kind of a little bit of imagination by just simply adding that extra layer of detail. And I think that this is a really nice shirt. It's probably my favorite in the entire game personally in terms of how nice it looks. And plus also as well, unlike the last shirt, this one is probably much more rare, especially nowadays, because the way that you unlock this shirt is you have to win 10 games of Scavenge mode. Now, Scavenge mode on PC is already dead. Like, I don't know about you guys, but unless it's like a specific time of the day, and if you're just cool with playing one map over and over and over again, then sure, maybe you can end up getting lucky with Scavenge mode. But on the Xbox, unless you end up having friends and can force this game mode, I think that this is technically going to be impossible. Now, like I said, if you happen to be lucky and you end up getting a couple games, or you just know people and they are willing to help you, then sure. But if you're the only one playing Left 4 Dead, especially right now, then it's probably going to be flat out impossible for you to end up getting this, because who the hell plays Scavenge mode? It's probably the least popular multiplayer mode in the entire series, and that's why this shirt is not only really cool, but it's also really rare and has significance behind it. Alrighty guys, now these last two items are not going to be cosmetics per se, they are more rather like emotes. These are items that you can end up giving to your avatar and they can interact with and play with, so that way they can end up being a little bit more detailed rather than just sitting still and just to be admired. So coming in at the second to last spot, this is going to end up being the medkit emote. Now the medkit emote is really cool because your character is going to get a actual Left 4 Dead medkit that they can use and that they can play with for you to watch on screen. This is cool. I really like this because it makes it so that way that your avatar ends up feeling alive. This makes them more unique, and plus also it gives them a personality because it shows them enjoying something that you also too enjoy. This is not necessarily going to end up being just an avatar anymore. This is an avatar with your personality. They end up liking stuff from the games that you have played before, and it feels like that you are an extension to your avatar, and that your avatar is an extension to the game. It brings everything full circle. This was one of the coolest things about the Xbox 360 avatars back in the day, because Xbox 360 had a lot of cool features. You could end up getting custom profile pictures from games, you could end up getting custom outfits from games, but these were probably the most fun, was just getting custom toys for your avatar to mess around with. But even though this is cool, I believe that there is one more thing that is going to end up being better than this, and this is going to end up being your very own Noam Chomsky Award. This is the coolest reward, in my opinion, that you could possibly get. And this would have been a much better reward for rescuing Nonchansky from Dark Carnival, because why not end up getting the man himself as the reward? Nonchansky is a running gag on this channel. I just overall really like this thing. It's just a funny joke that has been in several videos of mine, and I just like the concept of how he's an Easter egg throughout all of Valve's games. And to have him as a Xbox 360 avatar reward just makes this even more cool, in my opinion. This is the best reward. It just sucks that it's going to be linked to a different challenge. Now, the challenge itself is not that bad. All the challenge is just playing 6 different mutations modes in Left 4 Dead. Although the thing is, though, is that mutations is a part of the passing DLC, so unless you own the DLC, you cannot get this. There is the one caveat about this that does suck. Overall, though, the actual reward itself is really appealing, and it does make it worth it. If you were to get any of the Left 4 Dead DLC, I would personally recommend the passing, just not only because it's a good map, and you also get mutations as a game mode option, but you also get this for just simply playing it. And that is why I think that even though there is one caveat to this, that this is the best Xbox 360 avatar award for Left 4 Dead 2. In today's ranking video, we are going to be ranking all the rescue vehicles in Left 4 Dead. Now, it's interesting because I want to end up pointing out one thing before we get started with the list, is that by technicality, one map doesn't even have a rescue vehicle, and that's why I'm not going to be including it here on the list, and that's going to end up being the Sacrifice. I originally wanted to put this on the list, but the more and more I thought about it, it would seem very stupid of a spot, because there's no vehicle. All you do is just ride the bridge to eventually escape and go to the island. Now, the boat that is in the storyline is off camera and you never use it, so I didn't feel comfortable putting it on the list, so I decided to scrap just the Sacrifice campaign altogether, but I am going to be ranking 8 other things, and if anything is just going to be reused in another map, I'll just, combine it, and I'll just make it its own thing. So for example, I wouldn't say I'm going to use the helicopter from Dark Carnival as a separate thing from the helicopter that's on Coldstream, if that makes any sense. Anyway though, long story short, that's basically how I'm going to be approaching this list. If you guys end up enjoying today's video and you're excited for another ranking video, please end up dropping a like, comment, and subscribe, and all that beautiful stuff. But yeah guys, let's rank all the rescue vehicles in Left 4 Dead 2. Okay guys, so coming in at our very first spot, this is going to end up being the normal helicopter rescue that happens on Dark Carnival, No Mercy, and Coldstream. These helicopters are really cool. They're all cool. I mean, I like all the rescue vehicles in the game. There's not exactly one I have a problem with, but this one is just the most bare bones. You're going to see later on that there's some really crazy things that you can end up being rescued by, and this is just the most vanilla. The helicopter really has nothing significant about it. It's just a normal helicopter pilot and a normal helicopter in general. So I think since it's so bare bones, it's just pretty deserving of being on the list, although it's not exactly bad, but it had to be somewhere. Alright, so coming in at the next spot here, this is going to end up being John Slater's boat. Now, the problem with John Slater's boat, for me, in my opinion, is that if we detach it from the person, because this isn't going to be about ranking the NPCs, that was a separate list I made a long time ago. If we're just solely looking at his boat, there is other better options for a rescue vehicle. It's just a generic boat. Sure, we'll get you from point A to point B, but there's nothing exactly cool about it. I think more rather people are more attached to the character that is the owner of the boat and not the boat itself. I mean, it's a really nice boat. It's a really lovely boat, but it's not like a yacht or something. So out of all the possible rescue vehicles, it's not really that cool. It's, once again, very vanilla. It's a little bit more unique than the helicopter because I feel like boats are less common than the helicopter would be. Now, I know that sounds silly. I'm pretty sure a lot more people have boats than they do have helicopters. But I would say that in the zombie apocalypse, I would say that there's probably a lot less boats because the helicopters are probably a lot more resourceful and they're probably owned by the military, whereas boats are probably more likely to be destroyed and have like lack of fuel, and it's much more likely that you're not going to find one in the apocalypse. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. I feel like they're less common, so they're more of a novelty, and that's why it's cool to see a boat show up rather than a helicopter, but that's just me, and maybe that might be nitpicky, but you guys can let me know how you feel in the comments down below. Alright guys, and then right after John Slater's boat, we have Virgil's boat. Now I feel a little bit sad putting this so low on the list, but I kind of have to because it would be ridiculously unfair to say that Virgil's is miraculously better than John's because they're really not that different. They're different enough for different spots on the list, but in terms of like how different they are to like give one a significantly better spot, it would just be unfair. And like I said, we're trying to make this about the rescue vehicle, not the person that owns it. So if we're looking at just the boat in particular, I would just say that the boat itself I like better. But this is just a cosmetic thing because the boat is superfluous to the game. It doesn't do anything. It just allows you to end the game and be your rescue. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this before in a YouTube video, but I would ideally one day like to own a boat myself. I would love to actually have a boat because I like the idea of being out on the water and nature and travel, and having a boat one day would be really cool. It's always fascinated me. Now, Virgil's boat is more of my liking. I don't necessarily think I'll ever own Virgil's exact replica of a boat, although that would be kind of funny and that would be cool. But I don't think I'm going to ever own a version of Virgil's boat one day, but I would like to have something to that design. John Slater's boat is something that I personally would not want to own, and it's just not my cup of tea. So if I were to end up having a boat, I would like to get something more like a fishing boat, or just a boat that I could like take out with like friends, and we could just have like a couple people, maybe have like some fun going like for swimming or something like that. I don't really need much, but Virgil's is the closest thing to that, so that's just why I rank it a little bit higher on the list than John's, but they're still both cool rescue vehicles. Alrighty guys, so for these last few vehicles, these are going to be the really cool ones in my opinion. So for the next one, this is going to be the Blood Harvest military truck. The military truck, let's be honest, it's cool as hell. I mean, it's really, really cool. The high advanced military technology, just the armored behemoth that this vehicle is just insane. And when you look inside of it, you can see all the cool detail, the very much attention to detail, and plus also it has even seat cushions, so that's a little added bonus. But yeah, I really like the military truck. It's something that if you ever got your hands on as a person, you probably would be set. I mean, I don't know like what the miles per gallon on this thing is, but if you had the resources and you could keep it fueled up, this is probably your best thing that you're going to have in your arsenal in terms of a vehicle. Alrighty guys, so for our next spot now, we have got the Parish military helicopter. Now this I label separately from the normal helicopters because in comparison to the other helicopters, this thing is gigantic. Like, this thing is a flying tank. Like, we thought that the truck was insane, but the helicopter is even more insane. The blades on this thing is almost enough to fit an entire truck within it. It's something that almost is like the size of a cargo bob more than anything, and I really like how cool this is. It gives this sense of significance. Like, when you get rescued by this thing on the Parish campaign, you genuinely feel like salvation is here. I mean, hell, this thing looks like it's land in the sky. Like, you could probably live in this helicopter from point to point, and you would not even end up having it where you're being handicapped at all. This is a force to be reckoned with, and it would only be cooler, if you could, like, do something like, let's say, shoot a minigun out of the back of it. Can you imagine how cool that would be if there was, like, a mounted minigun on the side, and it was, like, a chopper where it had, like, the mounted gun on the back, and you could just lay into zombies while you're waiting for your friends to be rescued? Now, that would be some cool shit. That would be really, really cool. But sadly, it's not. It's not going to be completely realistic, but dude, that is something that only a man can dream. But yeah, I really like the Parish military helicopter. It's something unique, it's something fun. We only ever do see it just the once, whereas a lot of the rescue vehicles you will see that do start to repeat can end up being a little bit boring at times when they keep looping over and over again. But this only showed the once, so it's very unique. It's only on the Parish campaign, but I really do like the military helicopter, and I don't know how many people else do, but I think that there's a lot of fans out there for this one too. Now this next one might be a little bit of bias just because of the fact that I like this map a lot, but this is going to end up being the plane that is on Dead Air's runway. This particular plane I like a little bit better because of the fact that you shouldn't hypothetically be able to be as efficient as you can with this thing. The rescue vehicles, sure, the military tech is cool, but when you're almost creative and you make a rescue vehicle as something that shouldn't, it seems more fun that way. This type of plane should not be able to take off on the runway. Like, with the runway being on fire and the one plane that just exploded only a few moments ago when you load up the finale, this plane should not be able to take off, especially with all the zombies everywhere. The zombies would probably get stuck in the wheels. Hypothetically, it just does not make a logical sense for this thing to work. But it does, and it's cool that it does. It's really, really fun to just take this giant plane, this humongous giant plane, off of the ground and into the sky. I'm still amazed at the idea of oversimplistic things that, even though they've been around for several years at this point, just the idea that it never once existed and it does now is just fascinating to me. I mean, a lot of people probably take a lot of things for granted nowadays, but the idea that a giant hunk of metal can just levitate is just something unique to me, and especially given the circumstances within the campaign, specifically the Dead Air campaign, like I said, this thing should not be able to take off, but since it does, it makes it a little bit cooler in my opinion. Now, yes, if we were linking this to another map, it might be down a peg, but it only is in the one map, so we have to rank it almost in accordance to the environment that's also in, because that's only fair. But yeah, I really like the Dead Air plane. I think it's a little bit more unique than the military ones, but that's just me. But I think that they are pretty close and these could be interchangeable. Alrighty guys, so now at the number 2 spot, this is going to end up being Jimmy Gibbs' stock car. This is fun. I mean, who would not want to end up riding this thing? If you found this in real life, you would so end up using this as your rescue vehicle. I don't understand why nobody would want to use this. It's such a cool concept. A race car? Dude, it feels like I'm driving a Hot Wheels car. It's so much fun, the idea of running around and driving that thing and murdering zombies. Plus also the cutscene with NSenr just describes this thing so well. You literally will drive through the front of the mall and you'll just run over zombies in this cool epic slow-mo, and you feel like you're in the movie theater, like you're in a cinema and you're the one on the big screen. It's just so cool to be able to have that experience happening right in front of you, and you're the one that is leading it. It's just such a cool concept. Plus also, I mean, like, dude, it's just something that everyone has wanted to do at one point, is to drive one of those cool-ass cars, like a race car or a truck or something. Every person I've ever met has one dream car that they would just love to have, and this race car is something that, even if I never owned it, I would love to drive the equivalent of it one day, because it's just so cool, man. It's just so cool. And then, guys, for the number 1 spot, this is probably the first time ever that this has happened, and it probably will end up being the last, because I can't imagine this ever happening again. The number 1 rescue vehicle is going to end up being the truck on Crash Course. Crash Course, you finally did it. You finally ended up getting a number 1 spot on a ranking video. About damn time. I will admit, I have been extremely hard on Crash Course over the last several years. I get that. But this map has so many problems with it, except for a few things, and one of those things is its rescue vehicle. It is extremely cool. There is nothing about this rescue vehicle that I don't like. It's just a giant custom behemoth truck. Like, there's a mouthpiece in the front. There is a whole bunch of spikes laid out everywhere. The truck could easily destroy any zombie that it encounters. I would like to believe to a certain degree that it could run over pretty much any special infected with ease. Maybe not a tank, but it could definitely, like, give a witch a run for its money. But this truck, man, it's so cool. It's so unique. It's only ever been on the one map. And the fact that it's on Crash Course makes it even more special, because for such a bad map that Crash Course is, this vehicle is something that I always look forward to getting in, because I just imagine myself in my mind having this truck in real life, and just imagining how cool it would be to be the driver of this. Like, Jimmy Gibbs' stock car is cool, don't get me wrong, but this is cooler. This is more efficient for the zombie apocalypse. Jimmy Gibbs' car is fun, but eventually you'll run into problems. If you end up having the truck on Crash Course, you can probably make that last for a very long time. And other than maybe getting stuck in traffic, it's basically unstoppable. I mean, it would have armor, so it's very likely that you're not going to be affected by bullets. It's got spikes everywhere, so zombies probably will at the very most only get stuck and you can just kill them and scrape their bodies off later. As long as you end up managing your gas, this thing will last you a very long time. It looks cool, it's efficient, it's matching the theme of the game. I mean, this is definitely something that is zombie rescue vehicle in my mind. The other ones are just means to an end. I mean, generic helicopter, generic boat, you know, sometimes there's even like silly things like Jimmy Gibbs' stock car, but that's just more of a storyline thing. But this, the Crash Course truck is a true rescue vehicle in a zombie game, in my opinion. So that is why I believe that after all this time, Crash Course should get one victory and be at a #1 spot for once, with ranking all of its rescue vehicles and having Crash Courses be at #1. For today's ranking video, we're going to be ranking every single thing that Francis hates. Now, I looked at all the Francis I hate voice lines, and there was quite a lot more than I really thought there was. And even though that there is some that repeats, there's definitely plenty of things to rank throughout this video. So what I decided to do to rank them throughout this video, since it's subjective and it's just going to be based off of my opinion, I'm just going to be saying if whether or not I agree or disagree with Francis. So for example, if I disagree with him about something that he hates and why, it should be hated, I'll put it towards the bottom of the list. But if I do agree with him and I do also too hate this thing just like he does, I will put them towards the later half of the list or at the top few spots like 1, 2, and 3. Let me know in the comment section down below which voice lines are some of your favorites and which ones that you do agree with Francis on and why you think that they're stupid and why you hate them as well. If you end up enjoying the video, please leave a like. And with that being said, guys, let's rank all the things that Francis hates in Left 4 Dead 2. Now, to start off the video, I do also want to play a clip, by the way, or two of some voice lines that was not able to distinguish what Francis was saying. So technically these are going to be the lowest spot, just only solely because I don't have a spot to put them in the list because I don't truly know what Francis is saying. So if you guys could let me know what these things are that Francis are saying, please let me know. I understand the second one a little bit better, but I thought that would just flat ask you guys instead of assuming.
I hate Ayn Rand. Here! I was starting to hate this can.
So as of right now, I'm technically going to be having those two things be at the bottom of the list, or rather having no opinion on them, just because I don't know what they are, and I feel like I need to know what they are to have a proper opinion on them, so I'm kind of passing my vote on those. But now moving on to the next item on the list, the very first thing we have here is going to end up being Lewis's good feelings.
I hate your good feelings.
Now I understand that this is supposed to be kind of like a joke because Francis and Lewis are kind of like a yin to a yang. Lewis is more positive while Francis is more negative. But I kind of don't exactly agree with this just because I think it's kind of unnecessary despite the fact that he mostly might be just doing his satire joking. But that's just my opinion. Up next on the list, we have him hating Ellis's hat.
Hey Ellis! I hate your hat!
I get that fashion is subjective, but I don't agree with hating on Ellis's hat. I mean, it's just a hat. Up next, we've got hospitals.
I hate hospitals.
Now, I'd understand if he would say that he hated health insurance, because at least in the United States, it can be very problematic, but hospitals, I've never really have had a problem with. I've actually had a lot of medical problems before in the past, but I've never had an issue with a hospital, flat out being annoying or irritating, or even being problematic. So, I mean, I just don't agree with Francis on this one. Now we have he hates Canada.
I hate Canada. Oh my God, I hate Canada so much. If there's one thing I hate more than vampires, it's Canada.
I really want to know what Francis means when he says that he hates Canada. Does he hate the people? Does he hate the political system? Does he hate the health insurance? What exactly about Canada does he hate? Because I can't imagine anybody having a problem with Canada. It's the least hated country. Up next, we've got boats.
Don't worry. I hate boats too.
I like boats so much that one day I want to end up owning my own because I love being out on water and out at sea. And I understand that this is just something that Francis doesn't like, but I don't agree with you, man. I like boats. Next is islands.
Yeah, sandy beaches, coconuts, sand, beaches, sand... wait a minute. I hate islands.
Francis only sometimes will elaborate upon why he actually hates a said thing, and he does elaborate with that on islands. So he mostly just says that there are coconuts and sand and coconuts and sand. But to be honest, I do disagree once again because I think that tropical areas are very beautiful, especially islands. If you go somewhere like Fiji or Hawaii, it's very, very beautiful. Now, I understand that not every island is created equal, but I would love to hang out on an island. And I've even said before in prior videos that in a zombie apocalypse, I would do exactly what the Left 4 Dead 1 crew does and get an island, because in that way, nobody will bother me and it'll just be me and my loved ones. So I would love to be on an island, and I would be completely content with that. Now we have got doctors, lawyers, and cops all in that order.
And doctors and lawyers and cops.
I would say out of all three of these that I like the doctors the most, just because I've never really heard of a bad doctor and I've never had an experience with a doctor that was bad or problematic. For lawyers, though, I've never dealt with lawyers, but I know that people really don't like lawyers. A lot of people really don't like them. Now, I can understand that if the lawyer was on your side, you would like them better. And plus, also, who doesn't end up liking Saul Goodman? I mean, one of the best lawyers ever out there in the world. And it makes logical sense about why Francis doesn't like cops either, given the fact that he's technically a criminal, and if he ever did see a cop, the cop would probably just arrest him on the spot. So it's understandable where he's coming from there, and I get why he doesn't like the police. Now, for some weird reason, we have got fish.
I hate fish.
Well, Hater, I guess you don't have to eat any then.
Oh no, I like eating them. That's one of the ways I let fish know how much I hate them.
I guess Francis's mom told him when he was a young kid that his goldfish ran away from home, so ever since then he's hated Finding Nemo. Next is another animal, birds.
I hate birds.
Now, if Francis is referring to the crows that you can find on, for example, like Blood Harvest and The Sacrifice, I completely and utterly understand why those would annoy him, because of course they would end up alerting zombies to them. So it makes complete sense on that one, and that is one that I do agree with right there. Up next, we have Francis hating Bill's plan that he initiates on the Sacrifice campaign.
I hate this plan.
This could be Francis trying to show support to Zoe, because Zoe blatantly hates Bill's plan on the Sacrifice campaign, and instead of being like all loving and caring, he might just be trying to just troll the shit out of Bill just to like get back at him for Zoe's benefit. Now for this next spot, this is going to end up being something that is influenced by another character. This is a voice line that you will get on the Passing campaign, and this is Rochelle saying that she hates the bridge that is on the Sacrifice / the Passing campaign. So this is sort of more rather Rochelle's voice line and the thing that she hates, but Francis does agree with her, so I decided to put it on the list.
I hate that bridge.
It's so stupid.
There really isn't anything left to elaborate on that one, it's just Francis flirting back with Rochelle. Next, we have got small towns.
I hate small towns.
Now, if you end up going to a small town and there's absolutely nothing to do, and it's just boring as hell, that can end up being maddening, so I get where Francis is coming from. Up next is walking.
Thank God. I hate walking.
It depends on the circumstance of where you would end up hating walking. There was a phase in my life that I didn't want to do like any exercise at all, and even walking was annoying to me, but now I've come to really like exercise, and any form of cardio or weightlifting is fun to me. I like it a lot, but at the time, originally, when I used to hate working out, I understand where Francis is coming from. You get sweaty, you get disgusting, you get hot, you feel uncomfortable, your heart rate speeds up. Overall, you just feel gross and icky, and so I understand why that he would say he hates walking. Next is vampires.
If there's one thing I hate more than vampires, it's Canada.
I would like to acknowledge, by the way, that I do know that this is tied more back to the Canada joke originally and not just its own thing for the vampires. I get that. I also, too, understand that Little Vampire is a nickname that Francis will give, like, the jockey, for example, when it's approaching them. So maybe he's more rather talking about, like, the zombies and just the nickname Little Vampire. But if he's talking about actual vampires, I understand it on both fronts. Up next on the list, we have got parades.
I hate parades.
Never have had a parade problem personally, but I understand where he's coming from. They're loud, they can interfere with traffic. I understand where he's coming from. Next is the latest issues of magazines.
Hey, Francis. They've got the latest issue of Hating Everything magazine here.
I hate latest issues.
This voice line makes me laugh just because Zoe and Francis are just trolling each other. Zoe will end up making fun of Francis about how he's all negative all the time with this magazine joke, and then Francis just doubles down and then adds to it just to annoy her back. It's kind of cute and playful, but also just really funny. Now, next on the list, this is going to end up being water, but by water, we're talking about like the water that is in like a lake or an ocean or something.
I hate the water.
The water and the activity of being in the water is something that I feel like a lot more kids do than the adults do. Adults like sitting near the water, but they don't like going into the water. They don't like getting wet and cold and all that stuff. So it's understandable why Francis doesn't like it, but he also very well could end up having a phobia of it deep down and just not like the water. He might not be able to swim, and that is a very big phobia for a lot of people, like getting lost at sea. So that might very well tie into also the island reason as well. But yeah, I think that might be a perfectly logical explanation about why he hates the water. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now we've got steam. Pipes.
I hate steam. pipes.
This is Francis's take on the Zoe Steam reference that you can end up getting on Crash Course, because on Crash Course you can walk next to a steam pipe, and Zoe's like, I love Steam, which Steam is obviously the launcher that plays a lot of the majority of PC games that's created by Valve, and this is Francis's take on the exact same joke, although be it this is not necessarily as cheeky of a joke, but it is funny still nonetheless. Next is Francis saying he hates Riverside.
I hate Riverside.
So Riverside is kind of taking place mostly in Death Toll, but this voice line comes from Crash Course, I believe, at least if I'm watching the correct video. But the idea is that Riverside basically refers to Death Toll. Now, I don't inherently hate Death Toll, but I will say that there is certain parts of Death Toll that I don't really care for, especially the second to last chapter. So I will give Francis a little bit of leeway here, because even though some parts of Death Toll are great, some are really not so much. Next we have planes and helicopters, because they're basically the same thing.
I hate planes. I hate helicopters.
Since Francis's recent memory with planes and helicopters involves zombie pilots crashing them into the ground, I can see why he hates them. Now, I've never really been on a plane in a long time. The last time I was on a plane, I couldn't even remember, because I was like basically a toddler, and all it is just his memories from basically my mom's point of view. But I think that the plane and the helicopter idea now as an adult would end up being kind of annoying now that I think about it. Because as a kid, it's just like, oh, hey, you know, whoop-de-doo, it's like, you know, just fun being on a plane ride. But as an adult, it's being like, you gotta go through airport security, you gotta make sure that everything is safe, and it's just kind of a hassle, yada, yada, yada. Now, that is being blatantly negative. I would personally like to give it at least a try, but I'm trying to be, you know, relatable to Francis here. Next up is going to end up being elevators.
I hate elevators.
Fun fact, actually, there was one time that I was stuck in an elevator for an hour, and this was with me and my mom. And I can tell you this from my experience being stuck in that elevator, when you gotta pee and you're hungry and you just want to go, it is frustrating as hell. In fact, I've been suspicious of elevators ever since then, and every time I see that one elevator in the one location that I got stuck, I'm like, I'm not taking that elevator, I would rather take the stairs. Next up is vans.
I hate vans.
When I was younger, growing up, my family always used to have this giant white van. I know I'm not talking about that white van, you sick fucks. So yeah, back in the day, we used to have a giant white van, and it was just a way for a family of 5 to end up getting around places easily, although it was clunky, and to be honest, I'm glad that we ditched the white van and now have our own cars. Next up is going to be tunnels.
I hate tunnels.
You especially do not want to end up having a tunnel with a white van in it. Next up, we got the woods.
I hate the woods.
Regardless of which month of the year it is, it can end up being October or it can end up being any other month of the year. It's your pick. But I think that every single time when I think of the woods, I think of a serial killer being in there and ready to murder me, like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or something like that. The woods can definitely be relaxing and fun, but for the sake of this list, we're going to do the worst case scenario and just pretend that there's a serial killer in the woods. Doesn't that sound reassuring? Hey, Michael Myers, how's it going? How's the kids? How's the wife? I can see why somebody would be reserved, because there's wildlife out there that you're not sure how to handle. There could possibly be some random guy out there. Worst case scenario, I know, but that's the whole entire point of this list. We're trying to justify why Francis hates the things that he hates. Now we've got train yards.
I hate train yards.
I've only ever been on a train once, and I'm not in the area where a train would end up being fancy. The trains that I would love to ideally be on would be the ones that are like in the Harry Potter movies, but I don't have a rich enough lifestyle to be able to warrant that type of train ride. Next, we have stairs.
I hate stairs.
Now, I can relate with Francis here. I will say this, that I do not like stairs. I think everything else from the rest of the list here on out is going to be much more relatable, because the things that Francis talks about are everyday common things that I think you at home will also not like as well. So buckle up, my friends. It's time to get triggered. Next up is going to end up being subways.
I hate subways.
When I think of a normal subway, and this might not end up being every subway, but whenever I think of a subway, I think of it being like dirty and gross. Maybe that's just what my experience has been, but I've never really seen a clean subway, if that makes any sense. Like, they just don't seem to be clean to me from what I've imagined in my head and what I've seen, but you guys can let me know if that's your experience or if that's just mine. Next is going to end up being generators.
I hate these stupid generators.
This line gets triggered on the Sacrifice campaign, and I will say this is that, yeah, I can understand why he would hate generators, because they can end up being faulty, and this is the exact reason why Bill unfortunately passed. So I completely feel your pain, Francis. I really, really do. Next up is going to end up being sewers.
I hate sewers.
I feel like this one's self-explanatory enough. There's no way that you're gonna find something like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles down there. Your real life, everyday sewers are going to be disgusting and nasty, so of course nobody's going to like them, you know? Next is going to be suicide missions.
I hate suicide missions.
I feel like that this one's pretty self-explanatory, you know? Next one is going to be mountains, which this one is kind of a meme, which I'll explain here in a second.
I hate mountains.
There is actually a custom map on PC, and one that I have played personally, called I Hate Mountains, which is based off of this voice line, and you're playing on a mountain, which is kind of meta, and I think that that's very funny, and it's very cheeky for the mapper to make that. Next is Francis saying he hates tanks, which I believe is the only time he ever says he hates any given special infected.
I hate tanks. I hate tanks.
Don't worry, Francis. We have all at one point or another been bitch slapped by a tank, and we feel your pain. We feel your pain. Next is going to end up being Mondays, although I will say this is that Myth-busting Mondays definitely makes Mondays at least a little bit better, in my opinion.
This sign says, I hate Mondays. Man, tell me about it. Unless it's lasagna Mondays. I love lasagna.
You know what, Francis? Because you have helped me out so many times with Myth-busting Mondays, I think I'm going to end up rewarding you with a giant thing of lasagna, my friend. Next up is going to be the Army / the military.
Whatever. And all they got is this goddamn tape loop? Screw the goddamn Army.
I agree with you, Francis. Screw the goddamn Army. The military in the Left 4 Dead universe are assholes. Next, we have got car alarms.
I hate car alarms.
In the Left 4 Dead universe, the car alarm could easily screw you over, and plus also in real life, they're just annoying. Whenever somebody's car alarm goes off in real life, I'm just like, can you just shut the hell up, dude? It's so annoying, and I understand. I literally do hate car alarms. I feel you, Francis, I do. Next up is going to end up being the cold and the snow back to back.
I hate snow. I hate the snow. I hate the cold.
I absolutely agree with Francis on this one, because I will say this, is that as much as I love Christmas and the winter season during the holidays, when there's no holidays going on, I hate cold and I hate snow. I am much more preferring of a summertime or a spring type of atmosphere, and I think that spring and fall are probably the most tolerable in my opinion if it's not going to be summertime, but I do not like the winter at all. Alrighty guys, so for this next spot, this is just simply going to be goodbyes.
I hate goodbyes.
This is one of those voice lines that maybe I'm just reading too much into it, who really knows, but I like this voice line because this is Francis's way of showing emotion, you can just tell, because Francis, as much as that he hates a lot of different things, he still likes his friends, and he still wants to keep them in his life, and so the fact that he would hate to see them go, it's very sweet if you really think about it. It is quite sweet. It's the tough guy showing affection. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we now are finally down to the #1 spot of things that Francis hates. And the #1 spot is going to end up being, funnily enough, Crash Course as a map itself.
I already hate this place. Let's get out of here.
Francis, preach it. Francis absolutely nails it with Crash Course. I mean, I understand that the map is just a map and it's just a piece of content within a video game, but dude, it's funny and so meta when even the character in the game itself says they hate the map. Well done, my friend. Well done. I think that Valcon did that as a little bit of a joke if you think about it hard enough. But yeah, guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is it for ranking everything that Francis hates in Left 4 Dead 2. Thank you guys for being patient with me on this one. I understand that this ranking did take a while to come out, but this was a very long list to make. And it was kind of a little bit of a tedious thing to do because you want to make sure about like how you want to approach this situation. I thought it'd be best to kind of like treat it as like a fun little list rather than taking it so seriously. I was like, hey, you know what? I'll agree with Francis and say that I hate this and I don't hate this. And so yeah, I hope you guys end up understanding where I was coming from and why this list took so long. In this ranking video, I'm going to be doing a ranking of all the different game mode difficulties from worst to best. This was actually a request by one of you guys. This was actually requested here by Bray. And I really like this idea because, believe it or not, Bray, I did not think of this myself, and you making this comment allowed me to be able to make another ranking episode, so thank you for that. So in this ranking video, I'm going to be ranking easy mode, normal mode, advanced mode, and expert mode all in my opinion from worst to best, and basically seeing what is essentially the perfect difficulty within Left 4 Dead 2. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe to show you guys support. And if there's any specific thing you want me to rank in the future, just let me know via the comment section down below. But anyways guys, let's rank all the game mode difficulties in Left 4 Dead 2 from worst to best. Alrighty guys, so for the very first spot, this is going to end up being easy mode. Now why did I decide to put easy mode at the very bottom, you might be wondering. The reason why I decided to put easy mode at the very bottom is because this is the practice mode of Left 4 Dead. Because it's not normal mode, so it's not the intended difficulty, and it's not one of the harder modes like advanced mode or expert. This is the game mode that somebody should play if they are first getting introduced into Left 4 Dead. I played this myself, I'm pretty sure all of you guys have, and this is also a game mode that is very casual, and it's if you just want to play Left 4 Dead but you really don't want to put the effort in, this is what this game mode is designed for. Playing easy mode nowadays is just kind of mind-numbing. It's not exactly like it's a bad experience, but I would rather play normal mode or higher if I'm going to play Left 4 Dead regularly, because there's no threat and challenge in easy mode. You can't die by any stretch of the imagination. The only way you would end up dying is if you were just a new player. But at this point in Left 4 Dead's life cycle, with the game being over 10 years old, there is really no new players at this point. So really this game mode, it's only really used for ending up goofing around, or getting achievements, or just playing and just not really putting a lot of effort in. And that's not a bad thing per se, but for the sake of replayability, it's just not fun. If you wanted to play this game mode on a regular basis, I would recommend that you would at least up it to normal mode, because at least on normal mode, you do have the possibility to die, but on easy, the chances of you dying are pretty much slim to none, so there's no threat really, and it just kind of gets boring really, really fast. Now coming in for the next spot here, this is going to be the exact opposite of easy mode. This is going to end up being expert mode. So why am I deciding to put expert mode right after easy mode? I decided to put expert mode here at the number 3 spot is because expert mode is a very challenging mode, and that can be a good thing, and it can also end up being a bad thing. All these game modes are supposed to end up ranging in difficulties, so that way you, the player, can play the one you're the most comfortable with. Now, expert mode, I think, is a very valuable game mode, and it does have its place in Left 4 Dead, but for very similar reasons, although be it slightly different, I don't personally like to play expert mode all that much. Expert mode is a very nice game mode, and it does end up rewarding you with achievements and stuff like that, but I would much rather play normal mode and advanced mode, which is why those are going to be the number 1 and 2 spots, is because that's the sweet spot for me. Expert is just a little too difficult for me to want to regularly play it. I would much rather play something a little bit easier, because expert can kind of be unfair at times. It's especially difficult if you're playing expert realism mode, but then again though, adding realism to any of the game modes does make it definitely harder. Game mode difficulty is a tricky thing to balance, because you need to end up having a perfect sweet spot for the game to end up being good, or you just give players the choice like Left 4 Dead does, and you make it so that way you can rotate between all the different game modes. Left 4 Dead works because they end up giving you the choice of the game modes. If, like, let's say normal mode was the default mode in Left 4 Dead and you couldn't make it any more harder or any more easier, Left 4 Dead probably wouldn't be as popular as it is today. But because you have that choice, that ends up giving you variety with the game, even more so because of the director. Because when you end up changing the difficulty, you're also in a way changing the director, which can end up making it so that way the game feels fresh and new every single time. Sometimes you get a tank, sometimes you get a witch, sometimes you get a jockey, sometimes you get a hunter, and sometimes they're going to be a lot more dangerous than they otherwise would be normally, and that's what makes Left 4 Dead fun. It's just that for how difficult expert mode is, I would rather have it be a novel, fun thing than a regularly occurring thing, if that makes any sense. Alrighty guys, so for the second to last spot, we have got normal mode. So why did I decide to put normal mode at the second to last spot? Normal mode is a very good default game mode for Left 4 Dead, so much so that I think that Valve pretty much nailed it on the head in terms of how difficult the base game of Left 4 Dead should be. Normal mode in Left 4 Dead feels like what Left 4 Dead should be balance-wise, because easy feels definitely too easy, and everything else does feel very, very hard in comparison to normal mode, because the jump is a lot more noticeable. Now, normal mode, there's a decent amount of special infected, there's a decent amount of common infected, and you very well can die in normal mode. I think that the chances of dying in normal mode are still slim to none in comparison to advanced mode and expert mode, but it's most certainly much higher than if you were to play easy mode. Trying to die on easy mode is very difficult to do. You have to go out of your way to kill yourself in easy mode. For somebody that wants to have just a little bit more of a challenge in comparison to easy mode and still be able to play Left 4 Dead casually, normal mode is the go-to game mode. In fact, a lot of the recent times that I've been playing Left 4 Dead, I have been playing on normal mode. The reason for this is because I don't need to show off my skills in Left 4 Dead. I've already shown them off in prior videos and live streams in the past, and you guys already know my skill level with Left 4 Dead. My videos are more hypothetical and humor-based anyways, so I really don't need to end up showing off crazy high-skill gameplay in the background when the video doesn't exactly revolve around that. When I end up playing a video game, I mostly want to end up having fun. Sure, of course, I would like to show off and end up gloating at least a little bit, we all do, but I've done that before already, and I've kind of gotten my fix with Left 4 Dead, so it's not exactly necessary anymore. But I occasionally do still get that itch, and that's why you sometimes see challenges on the channel, but even then, it's still on normal mode because the challenge is already so difficult, I'm not going to make it even more annoying by playing on, like, let's say, advanced mode or expert mode or something. All in all, video games at the end of the day are about having fun, and so it's about having fun your way. You can end up having a challenge, and you can also end up having a freebie every once in a while. You don't have to end up being so strict on yourself. You can end up having a sense of variety where one day you feel like sweating and one day you feel like not, and that's completely and utterly okay. So the fact that Left 4 Dead has the option to pick is what really makes Left 4 Dead work in the first place. Now, of course, by process of elimination, you guys can tell what the number one spot is going to end up being. The number one spot is going to end up being advanced mode. For the longest time, I always played Left 4 Dead on advanced mode. In fact, recently, I've been playing Left 4 Dead again on advanced mode, because advanced mode is my favorite game mode personally. I think advanced mode is just perfect enough of a mixture of challenge and fun casualness, because normal mode and easy mode, the tanks and the witch and all the other special infected, they're not exactly threatening. But with expert mode, it's just a little bit too rage-inducing at times for how casually I play, because Left 4 Dead's not the only game mode I play anymore. I'm trying to balance other games, so I really don't have exactly a lot of skill that I can end up dedicating to Left 4 Dead at the moment, so I don't want to necessarily challenge myself and just get frustrated all the time. So advanced mode is my sweet spot. I like advanced mode because it gives me the ability to challenge myself within reason and still feel satisfied. I'm scratching that said itch. In any given advanced mode session in Left 4 Dead, I would say it's fair to say that I will probably experience personally anywhere between 0 or 1 death, a little more, a little less, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2, and I would say that I have a decent amount of downs, like somewhere a little bit less than 5 across me and my entire team. But I actually will end up getting into a lot of different engagements where my life is actually on the line. And there's the illusion that I might not make it. I'm most likely going to make it because I've played advanced mode several times over, but there is the chance that I will not make it. So the chance that my life is actually in danger and I could lose, the idea of that is what makes it fun. That's where the adrenaline rush and the sense of gaming enjoyment comes from. In this ranking video, everybody, we are going to be ranking all the Dark Carnival games from worst to best. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe and all that beautiful stuff. But with all that being said, guys, let's rank all the Carnival games in Left 4 Dead 2. Alrighty guys, so coming in at the very first spot here, this is going to be the Strongman competition game. So this is going to end up being the game where you end up taking a melee weapon and you end up hitting the red target on the bottom and you end up trying to hit the bell so that way you can prove how strong you are. Now, even though there's only 3 Carnival games in the entirety of Dark Carnival, why did I decide to put this one at the very bottom? The reason why I decided to put this one at the bottom is because this one has the least amount of stuff that you can do with it. So, for example, if you were to walk up to this, the only way that you can end up interacting with this machine is if you end up meleeing it. You can't jump on it, you can't shoot it, the only thing you can do is melee it. And the thing is that when you melee it, you're never going to end up winning the game unless you end up having an adrenaline shot, and even then, when you end up using the adrenaline shot, it's only going to end up being for 1 attempt, because immediately you will win and the machine will break and you can't try the machine again. It doesn't reset, and the only way you can end up getting it to work again is if you reload the entire chapter from the very beginning, which which means that you can only either lose or win one single time on this particular minigame. And here's the thing, is that unfortunately, with the achievements, you can only end up having one person get the achievement per game if you need to get that specific achievement within your group. So that means that you're going to have to take multiple attempts up to 4 times if everybody still needs the achievement to end up getting this for everybody. So in summary, that's why I don't like this particular carnival game. It's just too bare bones for me, but the other two are definitely a lot better in my opinion. Alrighty guys, coming in at the next spot here, this is going to end up being Whack-A-Mole. Now, Whack-A-Mole was one of my favorite games as a kid. If any of you guys, when you were younger, ever went to like a Chuck E. Cheese's or any of those types of arcadey places before they started to like kind of close down a lot, people started to be more interested in things like the internet, this was like the main game, the most infamous game that you could end up playing at one of these types of locations. Now the weird thing is that unlike the strongman competition game, this game right here, you can actually use your gun. If you wanted to, instead of meleeing the pistachio figures, you can just shoot them, and they'll somehow, for some reason, give you points, and you can just do this infinitely until the machine also will inevitably break. This machine will only break, though, after a certain score has been reached. I believe it's about 40 or 42, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing is, though, is that it doesn't break until that score. Whereas with the other game, you end up having to use your strength to the point where you like will literally physically break the game, but a gun doesn't do it. I don't understand how that's possible, but okay. Another thing I like about this game is that the points are collective over time, so you don't have to reach 42 within a single time limit. You can just keep going and going and going until you inevitably will get the score. And this is nice because that means that you can end up killing a couple of zombies, play the game, kill a couple of zombies and play the game, so that way you don't have to just go into a private match and turn the director off just to attempt to play the game. All in all, really solid game. Alrighty guys, now there's only one more carnival game left, but this one is definitely the best, and this is the one that's the most famous within the game. So coming in at the number 1 spot, this is going to end up being the shooting gallery game. So within this game, you can end up using your guns. In fact, you can only use your guns unless you're cheating because you can't reach the targets otherwise. But basically what happens is that you take any gun of your choosing and there's going to end up being some moving targets that you have to shoot. If you end up shooting the correct targets, you get a lot of points. If you end up shooting the one peanut guy, you end up losing points. Now, in order to win this game, you have to collect a total of 750 points. If you do get 750 points, there is a physical reward that you get within the game, and this is going to be the man, the myth, the legend, Noam Chomsky. And if you want, you can take him throughout the entire campaign with you and end up getting an achievement for it. So if you want, you can end up taking him to the helicopter and end up getting some gamer score by just simply taking a cool little gnome guy that you won for playing an in-game minigame. Now, even though Noam Chomsky is not the best weapon by any stretch of the imagination, he is a physical, tangible thing that you can end up using in the game, which only ever exists on this one map. So you get kind of like a unique throwable item slash melee weapon for just simply playing a cool little mini game, and that's fun. I like that novel little optional thing that you can do, so that way you can just mix your gameplay up if you want to. I remember back on the Xbox 360 when I was playing Left 4 Dead, and I was trying so damn hard to get this achievement with my buddies. Because we were new to Left 4 Dead, we really didn't know what we were doing, but we knew that this was a kind of a cool Easter egg, and we're just like, hey, you know what? We can get an achievement for this. Let's grind this. Now, given the fact that I was a child and I didn't end up having that many brain cells at the time, I ended up struggling to get this achievement for a while, but it was something that was so fun and kind of like a nice like little journey that you could take. The achievement was something that you really had to grind for, and it wasn't just a freebie that you got like the other two. So all in all, this achievement and reward just felt so much more satisfying when you did finally get it. In today's ranking video, we're going to be ranking all the crossovers of Left 4 Dead. And to specify just a little bit more, I am not referring to games being in Left 4 Dead, I am referring to Left 4 Dead being in other games. So this is going to mean that we're going to be taking a look at other games that have taken storyline elements, characters, weapons, etc. from Left 4 Dead and put it into their games and see how faithful and accurate or just fun the interpretations are. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe to show your guys' support. But with all that being said, guys, let's rank all the crossovers of Left 4 Dead 2 from worst to best. Alrighty guys, so coming in at the very first spot, this is going to be the Left 4 Dead crossover with Team Fortress 2. Now this crossover comes in the form of pre-ordering Left 4 Dead 2. If you were to pre-order Left 4 Dead 2 back in the day on Steam, in Team Fortress, you would be able to get some cosmetics that would alter your characters. This is them on screen, but the thing is, though, is the reason why I put this at dead last is because I don't really think that this crossover skin really truly represents Left 4 Dead. You guys are going to see by comparing this to the other games that are later on within this list that this is kind of soft and kind of weak in comparison to the other stuff we got. This isn't really like a substantive crossover. I get a pre-order bonus, and it's supposed to be kind of like superfluous to the game, but it doesn't even feel like it's a Left 4 Dead item. It just feels like a generic spooky zombie item just because you downloaded Left 4 Dead. I think it would have been better if we got, like, let's say, Nick's suit, or Ellis's hat, or Zoe's jacket. Something that would be more Left 4 Dead-like, rather than just generic zombie-like. Alrighty guys, coming into the next spot here, this is going to be the Left 4 Dead crossover with Minecraft. Now for those of you guys that don't know this, Minecraft has some Left 4 Dead skins. In Minecraft's digital store, you can get skins of the Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 crew and be able to use them within Minecraft. Now, this is something that I've actually got myself. I have this back on my old Xbox 360, and I love this. I thought that Minecraft getting these skins was awesome in my opinion because I like both Minecraft and Left 4 Dead. So I was like, hey, why not? You know, at the time, this was before like digital marketplaces were like a norm. So I think that at the most, both of these things altogether cost like less than $10. It was really fun to me and it was novel, and so I could be able to play as the Left 4 Dead 1 and the Left 4 Dead 2 crew while I was playing Minecraft. And it was really fun and enjoyable. But the thing is, though, is that looking back on it now, it really didn't age that well. The main thing that didn't age that well was the way that these characters are represented through their skins. Because here's the thing, is that at the time, as a young kid, I didn't really care if it was a complete faithful recreation. But as an adult, it's more, I'm more picky, to be honest with you. I think that these skins lose their novelty when you end up looking at them for what they are. I don't really like the fact that Ellis does not even look like himself. Plus also, what is with some of the facial expressions on these characters? Like, why does Nick look so goddamn sad? It looks like a little kid when you tell him you can only just have one cookie. Alrighty guys, now coming in at the next spot, this is the crossover for Left 4 Dead and Zombie Army Trilogy. Now for those of you guys that don't know what Zombie Army Trilogy is, this is a game series about basically World Wars, specifically the second one. And I would show more gameplay and talk about this a little bit more in depth for the actual game portion, but with a game about World War II that's mostly taking place during Germany, it's kind of hard when you got certain symbols everywhere and a certain dude with a famous mustache running around. So it's kind of hard to talk about that one. So let's talk about more just the cosmetic aspects and what I can talk about for this specific game. So with Zombie Army Trilogy, these skins, they are the Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 crew, just basically as cosmetic representations of themselves for the game itself. Nothing physically changes about the game as far as I'm aware with these. It's just cosmetic. The problem is, though, is that even though they're more faithful than the Minecraft reinterpretations, because, well, it's Minecraft, I just don't like the way that these skins look. There's just something unsettling about specifically their faces that I do not like. Like, Left 4 Dead, even though it's an old-ass game, the facial expressions are superb for the characters. Like, there's so much life within their facial expressions. Every single thing that they say, there's a facial expression and an emotion to go with it. So the characters feel very real. But in Zombie Army Trilogy, the models just seem so stiff. Like, they just feel lifeless in comparison. They're just cosmetic only in terms of like just the way that they look. There's no personality. I don't feel like I'm playing as Ellis. I feel like I'm playing as a guy cosplaying as Ellis. I'm not trying to sound ungrateful when I'm complaining about these things, But I think it's completely reasonable to say give the characters a little bit more emotion and facial expressions, because otherwise it just feels kind of awkward. It's like humans naturally will read into facial expressions and body language more than they will ever do anything verbal. So when I'm trying to imagine these characters being a certain way and they're not, it makes me uncomfortable. Okay, now the next game on our list is going to be Super Time Force. Now you're probably thinking, what the fuck is that? So I'll tell you. Super Time Force is going to end up being a 2D platformer where you're going around basically shooting up and blowing up enemies. It sounds pretty simple and straightforward, but the cool thing is that there is a Left 4 Dead crossover, and there is going to end up being a skin slash, I guess you could say, recreation of Zoe from Left 4 Dead 1 within this game. Now, of course, it was going to end up being a given that based off the way that this game is, with it being a pixel art 2D platformer, that Zoe was, of course, not going to look like the way that she did in Left 4 Dead. Now, I have never played this game myself, so I have zero idea if they end up giving Zoe any special abilities. I would see something from gameplay every now and again that will look like that she's throwing a jerry can, but a jerry can doesn't have to be a Left 4 Dead thing. It can just be any game that has a jerry can. It's not like Left 4 Dead has a copyright on that. So I don't really know if this is like something that you would pick her and she would have powers and you could use that to be able to get an advantage. I just think that this was more rather a cosmetic idea, and it does look like that it's something kind of fun, but without me playing the game, I would never truly know. Alrighty guys, now we've got Dead by Daylight. Now this is actually a game that I have played, and this is going to be something that is also going to make it where that the character within this game is going to end up affecting the gameplay. So in Dead by Daylight, there was a crossover with Left 4 Dead where you could actually play as Bill and be able to use special abilities that are only unique to Bill. Here's the thing, is that this is a double-edged sword, because when you're playing a game that's got a meta to it, and you have to pick certain characters so you can do well and get wins, you need to make sure that the character fits the situation. Now, Bill is a very useful character for when I last played this game. He was really good in my opinion. The problem is, though, is that if you end up having patches where you can end up having nerfs and buffs, Bill, hypothetically, if a certain patch were to go through, could basically become useless. And the thing is, though, is that since this game is going to be where you have to pick certain characters in order to end up winning and doing well, if you just want to play as Bill for cosmetic purposes, if he's not in a good meta right now, you're essentially throwing and losing for your team. Since the only element of this Left 4 Dead crossover with Dead by Daylight is the playable version of Bill as a character, if Bill ends up sucking within the current meta, you basically cannot play the crossover, because unless you're playing for cosmetic purposes and you just like playing as Bill, or you're playing online and you're just really, really good with Bill, then Bill basically becomes useless to you, because either A, you're putting yourself at a handicap, B, you get bullied by people that don't want you to play as Bill, or also C, you just end up having a very, very bad time and get your ass kicked because Bill just sucks. So at the end of the day, you have to play this one by ear. This could be either one of the best crossovers or one of the worst by just simply one thing, and that's going to end up being whether or not that the current patch allows for you to play as Bill successfully. So I would say take this one with a grain of salt, but it definitely is something that is worth noting. Okay, now we have got the crossover with Left 4 Dead and Resident Evil. This is going to be specifically Resident Evil 6, and this crossover, in my opinion, the reason why I put it so high is because the character recreation seemed the most faithful in this game. I think that Resident Evil definitely makes the characters look like themselves the way they were in Left 4 Dead, but just looking better and more in HD quality. And I like that. I like the attention to detail that they put into bringing these characters into this game. It feels like a Left 4 Dead character in the Resident Evil series, and not like a Resident Evil version of the Left 4 Dead character. It just feels like both games blended together. Not only do we end up getting Ellis, Nick, Coach, and Rochelle as playable characters, but we also get the Witch and the Tank as enemies within the game to face. Now here's the thing, is that what I'm about to say might sound like I'm talking more rather about the game than the crossover itself, because I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to look at only the crossover and not the game at all. but when it comes to Resident Evil 6, the gameplay mechanics just look so good on the survivors. I love the idea of seeing all the characters like drop kicking and Superman punching all the zombie types, and just the gore and the aggression between the witch and the tank is just amazing to watch. It looks so detailed and so good. It feels like it's just straight out of a movie, and the gameplay just merges so well with the way that I would imagine a real life version or a more like grittier version of Left 4 Dead being like. Okay guys, coming in at the next spot, this is the crossover with Dying Light 1. Now in Dying Light 1, there was a crossover with Left 4 Dead where you could not only, once again, play as Bill, but you would also get some other elements as well, such as a Noam Chomsky melee weapon, which was really cool. And this was a really good melee weapon. You could upgrade this all the way up until, I believe, at least purple, which in Dying Light's case is like the second highest tier within the game, until you end up getting like some of the like legendary mythic types, which is like the really rare stuff. But the point is, though, is that you could get Noam Chomsky as a melee weapon and have him be a really good melee weapon for a while. Now, in Left 4 Dead, Noam Chomsky is just a throwable. He's not good at all. He's just something that's meant to be a challenge. But in Dying Light, they basically make him into a really good weapon, and it's fun just to beat the crap out of zombies with a goddamn garden gnome, and you're running around as Bill parkouring on roofs. It's just really satisfying. Not only that, but they also end up adding incendiary rounds within Dying Light, which means that now your guns are also going to be a lot stronger, and you also still feel like you're playing Left 4 Dead. Now, even though Bill in this game doesn't look exactly like the way I would figure him to look, he still does look really nice, and this looks like a much more aged and detailed Bill, like as if he was like from Left 4 Dead 3 or something, which I like that because it's just different enough that it makes it okay with me. All in all, this was probably one of the best DLC crossovers we could have gotten, because it's different enough but also subtle enough that it doesn't take away from either franchise. And finally, the #1 crossover in my personal opinion is the crossover with the game Payday. Because in Payday, when you end up playing that DLC crossover, you can actually play an entire campaign mission in No Mercy. There is an entire mission dedicated to playing in a pre-apocalyptic No Mercy, and you can go around collecting blood samples of infected people, basically insinuating that this is going to end up being No Mercy prior to the apocalypse. This is an excellent way to add value to both games, because essentially, directly or indirectly, depending on how you look at it, you're basically making the games into one giant story. Because what's happening is that you can look at this just from Payday's perspective and be like, oh, this is a really cool campaign and a really cool DLC. And from Left 4 Dead's perspective, this is an excellent way to honor the franchise and keep the idea of Left 4 Dead going. Plus also you get to see new and innovative ideas from a different dev team. Here's an example of the attention to detail that the devs put in. There's parts of the map where you can end up finding the witch just sitting in rooms crying, and you can take a look into them, and all of a sudden, if you look long enough, they'll just jump scare you. This wasn't necessary by the team. They just wanted to do this for the sole purpose of fun. They wanted to end up adding this jump scare in hopes that somebody would find it and shit their pants. They wanted somebody to be like, yeah, that's a cool ass Easter egg. That's just something that's just fun. The whole entire idea about what video games should be in the first place. Fun, finding secrets, not expecting things, and then being thoroughly surprised and happy when you do finally find them. They didn't need to do this. They wanted to do this, and that's what's awesome about this crossover. It's something that ends up honoring both fan bases, and would love, love, love to see something like this again, and even if it's a Payday game, or just any game in general, because this is something that makes me happy, knowing that there's devs that just care about that massive attention to detail, or even the littlest attentions to detail, and just end up making something enjoyable for years to come. In today's ranking video, we are going to be ranking all the in-game tips in Left 4 Dead. And for those of you guys that don't know what I'm referring to, I am referring to these little things that are in the lower left-hand corner of the screen whenever you are in a safe room. These are basically in-game hints to indicate whether or not that you should do a certain action in order to progress through the campaign smoothly, and I think that some of them are more helpful than others, so I thought why not rank all of them from worst to best. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like to show your guys' support, and let me know in the comments down below what you guys think I should rank next in Left 4 Dead. With all that being said, guys, let's rank all the in-game tips in Left 4 Dead from worst to best. Alrighty guys, so coming in at the very last spot, this is going to be, in my opinion, the only non-useful tip that is in the entire series. This actually comes from Left 4 Dead 1 because I'm going to be taking a look at both games, and this is the tip right here. Search for weapons and useful items. Thanks, Captain Obvious, I would have not fucking found that on my own. I appreciate your advice. Alright, now let's move on to the second one, where the tips start to get at least a little bit more than completely obvious. Shotguns can be devastating at close quarters combat. They are less effective at long ranges. Now I'd like to clarify something real quick. When it comes to these in-game tips, a majority of them come from Left 4 Dead 1 specifically, and the main reason why I believe a lot of the Left 4 Dead 1 in-game tips did not come back to the second game is because they're outdated. The reason I say this is because the Left 4 Dead player base has played the game for so long now that they've already figured out how all the different guns work. Now, in comparison to an SMG or an assault rifle or a sniper rifle, yes, the shotguns don't have as much killing potential at long ranges. However, though, this tip is not entirely accurate. Throughout the years of Left 4 Dead, players have played the game long enough to figure out what exactly they can do to make their guns the most powerful they can possibly be, such as, for example, but not limited to, shooting your shotgun and then shoving so that way you can shoot it faster. In terms of shotgun ranges, players have come up with multiple different strategies on how to make shotguns useful in pretty much all scenarios. Some examples, but are not limited to, crouching so that way the shotgun is more accurate at long range, and B-hopping and speed running so that way you can put the shotgun basically in the zombie's mouth before you end up pulling the trigger. So at the time of launch, this tip probably was very valid and useful for Left 4 Dead, but as the game got older, this tip just became kind of obsolete. Now we move on to the next one. Heal yourself or your teammates with first aid kits and pain pills. Now this is also once again from Left 4 Dead 1. Any of the ones with the header that's kind of like a gray color is from Left 4 Dead 1. Left 4 Dead 2 is just plain black, so that way you guys can tell the difference. This tip would be very useful if you were a new player and never played Left 4 Dead before, but Left 4 Dead really doesn't have like any new players coming in the last several years, so this tip also is kind of outdated, but is still much more valid than the prior two. They all serve their purpose, but they're mostly meant for anybody that's new to the game, and it's just why it's hard to rank them is because there's really no new players in Left 4 Dead anymore. Get to the next safe room, look for the red steel doors. This is something that I feel like a lot of the dialogue would just clarify for you, so it's really not entirely useful. There are some of these tips that make sense. I'm like, oh yeah, I can definitely see how somebody would enjoy the reminder every now and again. But this is something that I feel like you would just get used to after a while and would be kind of pointless once you played the game for a couple months. It's one of those hard things to judge of whether or not that new player would need this long term, or this is something that they would only need in the short term. And in my opinion, this would be more towards short term just because of the fact that, like I said, dialogue would probably clarify this and remind you of it. Revive fallen teammates before they bleed out. Now this tip is useful, but I feel like it should be tweaked just slightly and also clarify, depending on what platform you're playing on, whether it be Xbox or PC, what is the button that you need to press to revive your teammates, because I feel like that would be more useful. It's a given that the player is going to experience the bots reviving them because of the fact that they're new, they're probably most likely going to die, so they're going to experience that just from the base gameplay. I feel like that a tip should end up clarifying the control scheme if it's something that you're going to be using quite regularly and is important to the gameplay, especially if somebody is new, because if they don't know how to do basic actions, they might be screwing over their team by just being bad, and that's not to be mean, but honestly, it's just the truth. Nobody likes a bad teammate. So I feel like that this tip was good in spirit, but it should have been elaborated upon more to be actually useful. Shove enemies away if they are too close, press mouse 2 to shove. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They not only clarify an important thing that's going to be critical to the gameplay, but they also tell you what button to press. This is exactly what they should have done with the last tip, but they didn't. So I give props to Valve for clarifying the shoving mechanic, because that's a critical part of Left 4 Dead, and if you wouldn't shove in this game, you would be putting yourself at such a massive handicap. It's very important that they clarify this, so good on Valve. Funnily enough, the shoving mechanic is the only tip that somehow came back in Left 4 Dead 2. This was the only one that Valve, I guess, wanted to re-clarify to the player base, because it comes back in the form of this tip. Knock back attacking infected for breathing room and a better shot. Now, even though I like the first tip and the way that it's worded better than the second one, I'm basically going to put these in the exact same spot because they're pretty much the exact same tip. The only difference is the wording. The reason why I just don't like Left 4 Dead 2's wording of it in comparison to Left 4 Dead 1 is two main things. Number one is that they don't elaborate on what button to press again. For some reason, they took that away, but yet for some reason, this is the only tip that they brought back from Left 4 Dead 1, so if you thought it was useful and should be clarified again, why did you take away what button to press in the tip? I feel like that was a little bit of a step backwards. The second thing, and this is just maybe just me being picky, I don't know, but I really do feel this way, is that I don't like the way that the image is contradictory to the wording. So in the wording, it's basically talking about how that you should shove the enemies away, so that way you can kind of basically get a moment to recoup, and you can also end up killing the zombie at a little bit further range, kind of like, let's say, gun range. But the image they decided to use for this tip was of melee weapons, which I feel like is kind of contradictory, because for melee weapons you have to get close, so why would you shove to get them further away from you, because you would just have to get close to them again. It makes no sense in my opinion. Alright, next is going to end up being the tips about how that pain pills give temporary health boosts, but you must be careful because they wear off, and then that adrenaline gives you a temporary energy boost and makes it easier to run through hordes. Now, pain pills and adrenaline are negligible in terms of their differences. They're both useful and they can both save your life. Now, I know there are some people that say that they'll like one more than the other. For me personally, for example, I prefer pain pills. But the thing is, though, is that they're both good and they both warrant use in the game. So that's why I think it's only fair to put these back to back, although I will say this is I prefer the adrenaline tip better just in terms of cosmetics because the adrenaline's actually in the header versus the pain pill one, which just has the generic like white box with the black eye in it. Alright, so here's the next in-game tip. It takes longer to reload a weapon if you empty the magazine entirely. Now the tip itself is a very good tip. In fact, I actually think it's one of the better tips that's in Left 4 Dead. My only problem with it is that it doesn't clarify what you should do as opposed to just reloading the gun if it was completely empty. The tip doesn't clarify that you should reload with some bullets in the mag or reload with at least one bullet in the mag, so that way your reload animation is a little bit shorter, nor does it also elaborate on reload canceling or anything of the sort. So all it does is just basically tell you not to shoot every bullet within your magazine, which I feel like really isn't helpful because you're basically telling players that they can't use an entire mag to kill a zombie, which is kind of contradictory in terms of what you're trying to actually do. So now there's this weird thing where players are like, oh, well, the game's telling me that I shouldn't use an entire mag to kill zombies, so maybe I'll just start conserving my ammo, which you would think would be a good thing, but it's talking about, like, saving ammo in every single magazine, not just, like, making it where it's completely empty at zero. So people might not use an entire full clip, and they might just kind of get, like, jammed up, and they might not know how many bullets they should, like, reload at. And so they might use less bullets than is needed to kill an entire zombie, and so that might lead to them dying more. So this tip was good in theory, but bad in practice. And just timing your ammo consumption is just something I feel like a player will just get muscle memory with over time. Players over time will understand the TTKs of all the different guns, which guns are better at killing zombies at long ranges, which guns have better magazine counts, stuff like that. But that's only something that you'll figure out from just raw playtime, and it's something that really a tip itself cannot convey, even though it was good in heart. Alright, here's the next one. Always heal up and resupply ammunition before leaving the safe room. Now you might think I'm a bit silly for putting this tip so high up on the list, but let me explain. The main reason why I put this tip so high on the list is because even though people will end up getting ammo for their guns, or just swapping out their guns and healing when they're on red HP, some people forget to heal just in general when they're in the safe room. They should use every single med kit that is offered to them. Even if you're going to get like a 5 HP difference, that is still important. You should always maximize your heals. Why would you go out when you can end up having more HP? It just seems foolish to me. This is especially important in things like versus or on expert mode, where you take a lot more damage than you think you actually are going to take, and you could die just because of a small difference in your health. So this says pipe bombs are noisy, they lure infected before exploding. Now this not only clarifies what a pipe bomb does for anybody that's not played Left 4 Dead before, but also kind of hints towards using the pipe bomb. I feel like instinctively a lot of players would probably go for the Molotov because it's, you know, fire, and fire is kind of like one of those awesome elements. When people say like, hey, what element do you want to control, like water or fire or wind or stuff like that, a lot of people pick fire just because it seems badass. You know, the idea of having a Molotov cocktail in your hands and the ability to control fire seems awesome. But the pipe bomb is awesome too, specifically for in situations where you're surrounded by hordes and you need to get them off of you quickly, and if you try to do this with a Molotov and you just threw it at your feet, you would burn yourself alive, so the pipe bomb would be much better in this type of situation. I like the fact that this tip is mostly around to not only keep players alive, but also just to encourage everyone to use everything within the game and not just continually crutch on one item in the game. Now we have laser sights increase your weapon's accuracy. Some people might not know that laser sights exist in Left 4 Dead because their drop rate is one of the lowest in terms of things you can find, and I think that laser sights are one of the best things you can get in Left 4 Dead. They make your gun not only more accurate like the tip says, but it's just really, really cool to also see that laser on your gun. Now we have the tips about the incendiary and the frag rounds, basically talking about how that you can get these around the map and end up making so that way your guns can either set people on fire or give these zombies kind of like a stumble knockback effect. Incendiary and frag rounds are both excellent in Left 4 Dead. Now I personally prefer incendiary rounds, but that doesn't mean that either of these tips are going to be better than the other. They're basically just clarifying what the equipment does. And I think that this is something that is really great for anybody that's new to Left 4 Dead, specifically for anybody that's struggling to get into the higher game modes and really can't end up managing to get past anything besides normal mode. So if you want to have that just a little pick-me-up, you can use some extra ammo, specifically ammo that will be a lot more powerful than the base gun, which can be allowing you to be able to kill the special infected much more easily. Now these last few in-game tips here, in my opinion, are the best, and if there ever is a Left 4 Dead 3, all of these should come back. Crouch during horde attacks. This way, teammates standing behind you can shoot over your head. This not only clarifies what situation that crouching would be useful in, but it also basically is kind of like a hint saying to watch where you're shooting. I've had so many teammates that have accidentally shot me and got me killed. And I've done the same. We have all done the same. You'd be guilty and be lying yourself if you said you have not. And that's why I'm glad that this tip is around, because everybody makes mistakes and everyone just needs to have that reminder again. Some people get comfortable and complacent after a while and just kind of get into a rhythm, and then they forget to end up using the strategies that made them successful back in the beginning, and then they end up having it where they have a dip. So a lot of people just sometimes forget to crouch and just avoid gunfire, and then they get killed over stupid stuff. So please, 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 everybody, take note of this tip and remind yourselves to look at it every now and again, and stop fucking shooting me in my lobbies, please. Now we have infected cannot open doors, they must break through them. Somebody that plays Left 4 Dead even regularly may forget this. Some people just might panic, and they might just try to spray at a zombie, realize they have no ammo, and then they end up getting killed when they simply could just close the damn door. Now, the doors in Left 4 Dead are not completely made of iron and steel. They will eventually break, and they will end up having it where the zombies can get to you eventually. But the thing is, though, is that they buy you some time. So if you do not have a bile bomb, you do not have a pipe bomb, you don't have ammo, you don't have a melee weapon, you can just simply close the door. And I feel like just a lot of people just forget you can do this. Now, I understand that the door is something that is easily able to be forgotten because it's really not that useful. If somebody really wanted to kill you, especially if this is in versus, they can just go around. But you still, if you really want to be effective, use everything, including the simple doors in the map. Now we have the tip, bullets can pierce through doors, furniture, and thin walls, and hunting rifle rounds can pierce through almost anything. This tip is very good, and it's probably one of the best in the entire game, specifically for the reason that it's always going to be relevant and it's always going to be useful to you. People will forget, and people will end up needing a reminder. Not only that, but people could also use this as a hint to try to test out new surfaces that they have not tried to shoot through before. So for example, if you have a different gun of a higher caliber compared to what you normally use, try shooting through something that you normally would not shoot through otherwise, and see if you can get a wall bang so that way you don't have to play into an infected's trap. If you have a smoker that's trying to play you and try to peek you so that way they can end up getting you, try to bait him and just shoot him through a window or a wall or something and see if you can get the upper hand. I feel like that this is going to be one of those 200 IQ moments that a lot of people just don't utilize, and they should, because this will not make you a good player, this will make you a great player. Now we're on the last 5 tips, and all these relate to the special infected. Now, I'm surprised to see that they only ever give 5 in-game tips about the specials and not talk about all 8. There is actually no in-game tips about the smoker, the jockey, and the tank. They only talk about the others, so I'm surprised to see why that Valve only picked certain special infected to talk about, because I guess that they thought that one was more important to clarify than the other. Either that or they just looked at the jockey and be like, yeah, you're completely fucked if this thing is around. Alright, so let's rank these last 5. So starting off here, we're going to go with the boomer tip. Stay away from boomers, shove them away before you shoot them. Players that are not familiar with the boomer's mechanics are going to catch on very quickly why this tip is useful, because the boomer is going to kamikaze your ass and end up blowing up and causing his guts to go all over you if you shoot him too close. So it's a good thing to be aware of that, and it's a good thing that Valve warned the players ahead of time. Now we have watch out for spitter goo. The longer you stand in, the more damage it does to you. This is going to be the spitter in-game tip. This one is also really useful because it clarifies why it's important to avoid the spitter acid in Left 4 Dead, because people may not take it seriously right away, and then they end up getting red screened like almost immediately. So you want to be very aware of when a spitter is around, and if so, can you be able to avoid her and not stay in her spit for too long so it doesn't kill you. Now we've got the hunter in-game tip, and I like how that they're having a sense of urgency in this tip. The wording is as such. The hunter's pounce attacks leave survivors completely helpless. Save pounce teammates or they will die. It is made crystal clear to the player immediately when they read this that if a hunter is around and it's got your teammate, unless you do something, they are screwed. So you need to take immediate action, be aware of any sound cues that you hear indicating that a hunter is present. Now we got the charger tip. It says, chargers are capable of knocking down an entire team. A charger will not release a survivor once they have been pinned. The exact same seriousness as the hunter, even though it's not necessarily worded the same way. But I also do like the added attention to detail talking about how a charger can basically kill everybody, not just one person. Chargers are fast, they are very unforgiving, and they're on the tankier side. Like, for example, a charger will actually take 2 melee hits comparison to like some of the other specials. They are actually a lot more stronger than the average zombie, and they will destroy you if you underestimate them. That's why we have the whole karma charger meme in the entire first place within the Left 4 Dead community. You do not mess with the charger. And now, guys, we move on to the last special infected in-game tip, and in my opinion, the best tip in the entire game. Witches hate loud noises, flashlights, and being approached. Now, the witch is the most lethal special infected in the entire game. She will one-shot you, and she will one-shot kill you in expert mode. You do not mess with the witch in any capacity, regardless if you're a veteran player or not. This tip clarifies everything the witch hates, all 3, loud noises, flashlights, and being approached, so there's no way that you can mistake exactly what pisses the witch off. It's crystal clear about what angers her. And second of all, also as well, is that this clarifies and hints to the player that the witch is not to be messed around with, because she is really pissy about every single one of these things. So if you miss one of these things, guess what? You're dead, and players will figure that out eventually, even though the tip doesn't say it out loud. But I'm pretty sure that they'll get the hint, literally. In today's ranking video, we are going to be ranking all of the Midnight Rider songs in Left 4 Dead. Fingers crossed I do not get a copyright claim for having this music playing in my video, but we'll just have to wait and see. And in case you guys are wondering how I'm going to be doing this video, I'm going to only play some parts of the songs. I'm not going to be playing them in their entirety, but if you do want to hear them in their entirety, there is going to be a link down below in the description for that. But yeah, I'm basically just going to be playing the first verse, perhaps maybe at the most 2 throughout this video. But yeah, if you guys have enjoyed today's video, please drop a like. But yeah, guys, let's rank all the Midnight Rider songs in Left 4 Dead 2. Alrighty, guys, so coming in at the very first spot, we're going to be doing 2 back-to-back because they're technically songs, although be it I don't know if anyone would count them as this, so I'm just going to put them back-to-back at the very bottom of the list. But this is going to end up being the tank themes that you would end up getting on the Dark Carnival finale, because there is actually a different theme rather than just the normal tank music that we're used to hearing specifically for that map. There's going to end up being 2 versions, and I'm going to be putting them both back-to-back, but if you are curious, the second one, though, I do like better. So those songs are cool, but since they don't have lyrics, I don't know if you would count those exactly, but I thought I would include them in the video anyways. But now let's move on to the very first song that's actually sung by the band, and this is going to end up being, in my personal opinion, the song Save Me Some Sugar. So why did I decide to put Save Me Some Sugar at this part of the list? Keep in mind, this is once again just all my opinion, but for me personally, I think that this song, even though it's good, doesn't exactly fit the band all too much. There are certain songs and genres that fit certain singers, in my opinion, and I just think that the vibe of the Midnight Riders is not best suited for slow songs, and it's more best suited for their rock and roll songs, like the ones that are going to be coming up later on in the list. And just to give a compliment to the band real quick, this song is really good and should still be recognized. I just had to put it somewhere in the list, so I decided to put it here. Now this next song is going to be one you may not have heard of because this is one of the most uncommon Midnight Rider songs, so you really have to be on the lookout for this one. But it is one of the absolute best because not only does this fit the band better in my opinion, but it's just so funny, especially when you pay attention to the lyrics. So I don't know if you guys have heard of this one, but it's very fitting for this time of year. This is actually a song called All I Want for Christmas Is to Kick Your Ass, and yes, that's actually the title of the song.
I'm naughty, not so nice, someone who wants you dead. I know when you're sleeping and I know when you wake. Got a sock full of bolts and I'm hiding under your bed. Got some cookies, got some milk. Got my shotgun trained on the chimney. You stole my woman and all I want for Christmas is to kick your ass. All I want for Christmas is to kick your ass.
Every time I hear this song, I just can't help but smirk. It's super funny. Not only is it funny, but it's extremely catchy. This is just a genuinely good song. And the thing is that you really can't find this unless you look it up on YouTube. But I think that the devs just wanted to make a really funny song because you really have no reason to make this song. There's nothing about that like fits within the Left 4 Dead universe. You wouldn't find this like on Dark Carnival, for example. So this is just something that was just mostly just for the fans and also just for Valve's own entertainment. And it's a really, really good song. So kudos to the team that made it because it's just genuinely a good song. Alright, and now we reach the final two, believe it or not, and you probably already know what these last two songs are going to be, and you just want to see which ones I put where. But honestly, depending on what mood you're in, you can honestly swap these out easily. You can just say number one is number two and vice versa. But in my personal opinion, more times than not, I think this is what most people would rank these as. So coming in at the number two, almost number one spot, this is going to end up being the song One Man Band.
Well, I'm a half-done son of a gun with a suitcase full of pistols and money. But come down, woman, I'm gone, but tonight could be a lifetime, honey. But goddamn girl, I'm your man, girl. I'll get your engine singing. That sounds good, let me under your hood. We can find out what I'm bringing.
I've heard this song so many times on Dark Carnival and I never get sick of it. It's a really great song and it fits the vibe of so many things. It fits the vibe of the band, it fits the vibe of the environment, and it just suits Dark Carnival so well and makes the finale just that much more great. I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, but the music on Dark Carnival is so impactful to the vibe of that map. If you ever turn off the music, like you can try this actually, like seriously, turn off the music on the Dark Carnival finale and not listen to the band and just listen to how the vibe is different. It's not exactly the same. It feels very weird. And so this song makes the map almost, like other than number one, of course, but it's just that good and it's associated with the map so much in my mind that to not have it would just be a travesty in my opinion. So where does that leave us? That means that the number one song, guys, in my personal opinion, was the best Midnight Rider song. This is going to end up being Midnight Ride.
I'm a bad, bad dog with no house. She's gonna drink, dance, and party all night. So keep her rolling, it's alright. Keep her riding, the midnight ride.
I love this song. There's no other way to say it other than I just love this song. It's just a really, really great tonality. The guitar is amazing. The drums are amazing. And it just fits so well with everything that's happening around you. There's just nothing more fun than killing zombies to rock and roll music while fireworks are going off and waiting for a helicopter to land on the goddamn stage. And hearing this play, especially right as the helicopter is coming in, dude, it's just perfect. If there's no other way to describe it, it's just a perfect song. This ranking video, we are going to be ranking all the safe room locations that are in Left 4 Dead. Now, this is going to end up being a tricky one because this can end up being confused for individual chapters and it also can be confused with panic events. What I'm going to be ranking in this video is going to end up being the very end of a chapter when you were about to go into the safe room. That last little slither of the map where you were trying to end up getting your guns, your ammo, and your health back. So this is going to end up being the environment around the very end of multiple different chapters, if that makes any sense. Here are the main three things I'm going to be looking for. Number one, where is the safe room relative to you? Second of all, how dangerous is it to get to said safe room? And 3, how is the layout of said safe room? Because not every safe room is a cube, some of them are rectangles, some of them are circles, and some of them also have crap in the way that could end up affecting the gameplay. But that's mostly the general gist of it. I could go on and on and on and on, but I thought that we'd be here all day, so I'm just going to end up starting the video now. So if you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe and all that beautiful stuff. And yeah, guys, let's rank every single safe room location in Left 4 Dead 2. Okay guys, so coming in at the very first spot, and keep in mind this is my personal opinion, but I believe that the worst safe room location in all Left 4 Dead has to go to the 3rd chapter of Hard Rain. Because here's the thing with Hard Rain. Hard Rain is a very challenging map. It's probably the hardest map in Left 4 Dead 2. Now when it comes to Left 4 Dead 2, the gameplay mechanic of the rain personally is very annoying to me. I have never liked it and I probably am never going to like it. So it's annoying to me how that I have to trek through all this slow ass water with all the fog on my screen and I can't see shit. But not only that, the chapter is exactly the same way as it was when you ended up having the prior chapter. So you already know where the safe room is going to be, which leads to it end up being that same repetitive problem that I always rant about with Hard Rain, which makes it boring to me. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love challenges within video games. I live for them sometimes. Here's the thing though, is that the root of said challenge has to be also fun. When said challenge becomes more of a chore, that's when I end up having a problem with it. I don't mind having all the witches in the sugar mill. I don't mind the fact that you lose your stuff from the spawn if you choose to use it right away, and therefore you have no stuff in the finale. My main problem with Hard Rain has and always will be the rain. I don't like the fact that I can't see and I'm slow. I feel like a decrepit old person that's in their 90s, and I do not like it. I want to be able to fight back and have a reasonable challenge that is mostly more about fun. That is why I really don't like the safe room locations, because after I bust my ass trying to get through all of that challenge, I could end up dying by just simply not being able to know where the hell I'm going, and that pisses me off. Okay guys, now shortly after Chapter 3 of Hard Rain, we have got Chapter 4 of Hard Rain. Who would have figured? Now by the way, when it comes to this, I want to also point out something that I thought would be something very interesting to note. When it comes to the safe room mechanics in Hard Rain, has anybody ever noticed this continuity error, how that the one safe room location does not appear until you've progressed through the game a certain amount? If you end up looking at this area right here on the map, there is no safe room door, but when you go to Chapter 4, suddenly it's there. Whereas with some other maps, such as for example the Parish campaign on Chapter 1, you can clearly see the secondary safe room leading into the next chapter immediately from Chapter 1. So why is Hard Rain not like that? My guess is that because the devs thought that it would be confusing to players, they just decided to scrap the idea so people weren't trying to go into a super early safe room. But if that's the case, then why did they not do that on the Parish campaign? I mean, I know that technically they have it blocked off by a wall, but it would still lead to the same problems, wouldn't it? Okay, I was not expecting to put this here, but after thinking about it for a minute, I was like, you know what? Yeah, this hasn't really aged well over the years, so it'd probably be best to put it in this spot. I think it's justified. This is going to end up being the safe room on the 2nd chapter of The Passing. The passing campaign is overall a pretty decent campaign. Chapter 2 is also not that bad. The ending, though, gets on my nerves. That is what specifically bugs me. Because in the end of the second chapter of the passing, you have to do the exact same thing pretty much that you do with Hard Rain, pretty much minus the fog. The only difference is that you were just running in a sewer instead of running in a thunderstorm. But the thing is, though, the one thing that Hard Rain does not have, that the passing does, is a narrow-ass tunnel that you have to end up trekking through right as the final stretches of the map are taking place. So not only are you slow, but you're also completely trapped. Now see, at least the good news is that this part doesn't have fog, because otherwise this would end up being at the very bottom of the list, but it's pretty damn close. Okay, I really feel like this one doesn't need too much explaining, but this is going to end up being Crash Course Chapter 1. Crash Course could have easily been at least 3 chapters, but unfortunately we just got 2 giant-ass long ones, which means that the safe room is super far away. So you can sometimes spend, depending on what difficulty you're on, 10 to 20 minutes just getting through one single chapter to get to the safe room. This is just pretty much just fundamentally just bad game design. I mean, need I say more? Okay guys, up next is Chapter 4 of Death Toll. Now, Death Toll on Chapter 4 all of a sudden gets extremely difficult in comparison to all its other chapters. I have zero idea why, but I'm pretty sure I can make an educational guess, and that's mostly going to be coming down to the fact that the panic event at the very end of the chapter has a very crazy layout. It feels like as if you were in a maze, but also within the maze there's also an axe murderer chasing after you, so you really have no time to think, nor do you really have time to think clearly. And so a lot of it mostly revolves around muscle memory, but also a little bit of luck. So I would say that since this map is suddenly just chaotic all at once at the very, very end, it's just too much at times. I mean, does the safe room really have to end up being that hard to get to towards this point in the game? Okay, now we've got Chapter 3 of Swamp Fever. Swamp Fever has 2 things that make it difficult to get to the safe room. It's number 1, they end up having it where there's a panic event right before it, so you have to go through a whole bunch of different zombies and special infected, so you're probably going to be weak. And weirdly enough, they also end up having a strange staircase design to get to the safe room. It's not just a clear shot like it normally would be. You have to end up turning around to go up and get to the safe room. So this means that you can have zombies spawn up there and they can hide from you, therefore meaning that they can easily get you in versus, which they've even done that before to me in single player. They just hide in there and they wait for you. I mean, the safe room ends up getting, I guess, a point for uniqueness because of the fact that, like, I've never seen this type of staircase design to get up to it before with any other safe room, but I would say that this safe room, for the most part, other than just be unique, is quite forgettable and sometimes tedious. Okay, now we're moving on to one that I never really liked. And this is going to end up being the 3rd chapter of Dead Center. I don't like this layout. This layout is out of the way in my opinion. Why is it that we have to have a giant U-shaped hallway in order to end up getting to the safe room? Why can't it just be a clear shot? Not only that, but why at this point in the game do you end up introducing an element like this? Why do you make it where it's basically super easy for a special infected to either A, jump up and cut us off, B, be able to grab us from long range and pull us off, or charge us off, or whatever you want to do, like basically corpse launch our body. And also thirdly, why is it just such a narrow-ass hallway to begin with where a tank or a witch can basically cock-block the entire safe room? Why at this point in the game are you doing this, Valve? By the time that the safe room ends up being able to be seen, that should be the end of that chapter. It shouldn't ramp up and make it so that way there's all of a sudden this brand new element where the map is shaped in such a bizarre way, special infected can jump you. It's like, if I've completed the panic event already, I should just be able to walk in there pretty much with ease. I mean, I understand if somebody's hiding and they're trying to like jump me at the last second, but don't give them an opportunity to do that to me. Okay, so what's next on the list? The next thing on my list is going to be the 4th chapter of Blood Harvest. The reason why it's here is because the houses that you have to cut through to get to the safe room are poorly laid out, in my opinion. Because what it is that I get lost in there sometimes. There is this one particular spot in a certain house where I end up almost sometimes jumping out of the wrong window, which leads to me end up falling to my death. I know that sounds stupid after playing Left 4 Dead for several years, but if you're not paying attention, it's a higher difficulty. You could just sometimes panic and run out the wrong window, or a charger could end up flinging you out one, for example. And I don't really like the fact that this house has so many death traps within it. I just want to be able to get to the safe room. But I can't because, number 1, there's that, but also second of all, towards the very end, when you're trying to end up having a straight shot for the safe room, which sounds good in hindsight, they decide to pull a difficulty spike all of a sudden and make it like the 4th chapter of Death Toll, where all of a sudden a crap ton of zombies emerge out of the train and they are pretty much infinitely spawning until you either A, push through them and just end up getting into the spawn point, or B, you manage to end up just killing them all from a distance with grenades and stuff until they back off. Now, a lot of these beginning picks have revolved mostly around difficulty, but this next one is going to be mostly because of the fact that it's boring. And this is going to be Chapter 1 of Blood Harvest. I have no complaints in terms of difficulty, I just get bored. It's just as simple as that. Okay, now we've got Chapter 2 of Swamp Fever. Now, in my opinion, Swamp Fever is not nearly as big of an offender in terms of environmental inconveniences as much as Hard Rain. However, there still is some, and that's mostly just the water. The water in Swamp Fever is annoying on the first few chapters, but only briefly. The main one going to be Chapter 2, because in Chapter 2 there is a lot of swamp that you have to run through, especially going to be at the very end here, because at the very end you have to end up going through the water where the giant shack is sank. Now, when you end up passing the shack, you are now in the shanty town, and you are finally able to start going around and end up being on land because you were in the village. The thing is, though, is that right at the end there, because it's all covered in water, you can end up having moments such as, for example, a witch is underneath the water and you cannot see her unless you either look really closely and see the water's glowing red, or B, you unfortunately happen to shoot one on accident and you end up figuring out where the problem is emerging. Next is going to end up being the 2nd chapter of Coldstream. Now, this is one of the only 2 maps that was not made by Valve. It was only greenlit by Valve, so this is not their work. So when it comes to this map, the modder decided to make it so that way right before the safe room ends up happening, with this given panic event that takes place, you end up going in a tunnel where there's moving water. Unlike Hard Rain and Swamp Fever, where it mostly just makes you slow and sink, this is actually going to end up sucking you towards a certain direction where this tunnel is leading to a waterfall, and eventually will end up killing you if you do not resist the water pull. This is a very unique gameplay mechanic that I think adds a little bit of elemental challenge when it comes to the map. You're reversing the environment just as much as you're reversing the zombies. I like that. I think that this is how you should have done it in, for example, Swamp Fever and Hard Rain. But unfortunately, it's only in this map. The thing is, though, is that when it comes to this, there's also a double-edged sword effect with it, where even though the water element is cool, it can also get you killed sometimes. Because, for example, if a charger charges you in the direction of the waterfall, you are basically screwed. By the time that you would get up, you were completely done. Not only that, but when you end up downing on that area, because you won't fall off, you will just hang on the ledge. It is impossible to revive you. You are completely screwed, because every single time that somebody's going to go try to revive you, since they're so close to the edge themselves and they can't stop themselves from slipping, they will inevitably die trying to save you. So this part of the map will automatically kill you if you end up getting trapped. You cannot get around it. That's why it's super difficult in certain game modes, is because you have to at least progress a decent portion of the map right at the very end before you are truly even safe, which means that you have to be focusing constantly. Even though this chapter is really difficult towards the end, it is honestly quite fun. I enjoy playing this chapter on a regular basis. I still personally like Coldstream and do think it's a good map, even though that might be a hot take because I know not everybody likes Coldstream, but I think that this chapter is how environmental hazards should be done. This is, in my opinion, how it's done right. Okay, next is going to end up being the 4th chapter of Dark Carnival. Over the years, I've started to end up understanding more and more why people don't like this chapter, and that's because the ending is extremely hard. A ton of zombies will just swarm you at the very end here, and there's really nothing you can do about it other than just pray, because you will be surrounded from all angles, and really all you can do is just go through. You have to have pipe bombs, you have to have focus. I would also recommend having a shotgun or a fully auto gun by now, but if you end up having none of those, it's going to be very, very difficult, because the zombies can pretty much get you from any direction. Literally, it's not a joke. There is flank routes from the left, right, they are charging at you from the front, and they're still even chasing you from behind. By the way, did anybody also notice this might be a Mandela effect, but when was this ever added into this part of the chapter? I never remember this cut through being able to get up here in the first place. Okay guys, so coming at the next spot, this is going to end up being the safe room location for the 2nd chapter, the Sacrifice. Now the 2nd chapter, the Sacrifice, what you have to do to get there is you have to go up a whole bunch of gravel and you end up startling some crows. After you do that, you have to go down this narrow strip of this piece of metal so you can get to a giant ship. Through then, you end up going to the ship, then you have to end up jumping off of the ship and going through some more gravel, then you have to end up playing Mario essentially and jumping on all these different items such as barrels and blocks, and then finally once you're done going through streets a little bit, only then can you get to the safe room. The amount of steps that you have to do, it just feels like a lot. Now, I understand if there's like, for example, like let's say a panic event, or it's weirdly laid out, or there's some unique challenge such as the way it's shaped, I get that. But it just feels like they throw all this stuff at you at like once. You have to be slow, then you also have to end up being slow on top of the panic event, then you also have to go down a narrow pathway, and then you have to end up being on the ship where if you get hit by a charger you can be flung in the water, or you can just take fall damage, or you might end up having it where you end up getting lost because of the layout. It's just a whole bunch of things just back to back to back to back to back, and it's just overwhelming at times, and I just think it's just unnecessary. Next is going to end up being the second chapter of Death Toll. I think that this safe room had potential to be cooler, it's just that Valve really never filled it in with stuff. Because there's a bottom floor that you can access that nobody ends up taking. Everyone just goes immediately to the safe room and never bothers to look down because really there's nothing there to see. And I feel like if you put like really good loot down there, or maybe you put like an Easter egg or something, it would incentivize players to use that area. Otherwise just make the safe room smaller because really all it does is just give Special Infected a place to hide and that's it. Okay, so now we've got Chapter 3 of Blood Harvest. Now, this safe room is not exactly the best, nor is it really the worst. The thing is with this particular safe room is that in order to get to it, you have to end up doing a panic event where there's a endless horde, so you constantly have zombies chasing you, while you're also on an area that you could easily be knocked off of, because you have to go up a destroyed bridge, and then you also have to walk around a hill where you could easily end up being killed by a charger or a smoker, for example. If you get to the point where a Special Infected or zombies cause you to die, as in being incapacitated or just fall off of the hill and going back down to the bottom again when your teammates are about to be in the safe room, you pretty much are dead because to trek back all the way down and be able to get back up and survive is pretty much slim to none. But I understand that they're trying to have balance for the Special Infected and the survivors. I just think that sometimes it's a little bit too unbalanced for one team or the other, and this one I feel like is circumstantial at the very least, but it's something worth noting. Okay, so now we finally have reached the first chapter of The Last Stand. Now, the first chapter of The Last Stand, I think that its safe room is really good. I think it's balanced for both Special Infected and the survivors. And I believe that the main point of interest for this safe room is going to end up being the bridge, because the bridge allows Special Infected to get a lot of opportunities to kill you, while the survivors also have a straight shot pretty much to the safe room. So depending on which team is more organized, this will be the team that wins. You can also end up being very risky and trying to end up killing survivors or infected by basically sacrificing yourself. Overall, it's a toss-up, but because there's just so much chaos happening on this bridge and everyone has to cross in order to kill each other, it essentially leads to a giant cluster F in the middle, meaning that everyone gets to end up having fun just trying to murder each other over and over again. Okay guys, so now we've got Chapter 4 of Dead Air. Now Chapter 4 of Dead Air you really have to work for to get to the safe room, because you end up having two panic events essentially in this chapter. You have to activate the van in order to end up going through the luggage section, but towards the end you also have to run through a metal detector that will go off no matter what you do, and also trigger a second zombie horde that you have to face. And this horde is endless, and they will constantly keep getting in front of you, which means that you have to either melee or pretty much have a shotgun to get through reasonably. Because if you try to get through, even with fully auto sometimes, you can easily just get surrounded and die. So this safe room is not going to be given to you for free. You have to work to get it. Now that being said, I think that this safe room is justified being where it is. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it definitely is a fun little challenge. It's not annoying, it's more rather just difficult. And that's fine. As long as the core map is fun, I think that it's okay to end up having some difficulty enabled. The reason why it's hard for me to justify things like, let's say, hard rain is because the map is nothing but like just inconvenient little crap and not even really challenging. It's more of like, you're not exactly beating the map, you're withstanding the map and just tolerating the little things that are more annoying rather than challenging in itself. So I think that Dead Air does this better, in my opinion, in terms of challenge aspect by just plowing through a whole bunch of zombies that keep coming at you in an organized fashion. And I think that this safe room is fun. Okay, so now we have the first chapter of The Sacrifice. Now, in the first chapter, The Sacrifice, I believe that there was a wasted opportunity. I think that the train car where the tank is, that should have been the safe room. Think about it. You realize how cool that would be to end up having that be the safe room? And plus also, think about how that would immerse you in the game. Like, imagine that you kill the tank and you end up going to the train car and you see all that blood, all those guts, and just think of all the dead people while you're getting ready to go into the next chapter of the campaign. Especially since the sacrifice, since the whole premise about it is just like death and like, you know, the demise of a character, it would be massive foreshadowing, which would be a really nice touch. It would end up making Left 4 Dead really scary in that moment. I know they try to do something similar with another like blood area within Blood Harvest, where you end up going to the one house and there's like all the guts and everything in the one basement. But having it be the safe room with the tank in it, and just like thinking about how all the people died at the hands of that tank and how terrified everybody must have been, that would have brought so much immersion to the campaign. Here's also the thing too, is the safe room on the first chapter, The Sacrifice, is just unnecessarily far away. They just kind of want to make the campaign feel longer and just make it so that way you have to work a little bit more to get to the end. And the thing is, the safe room and its like last few areas in that storage facility is not really good the way it's laid out. You have to do so many weird shapes and U's and zigzags, and I just don't like it. I think that it would have been better just to leave it at the train car, but that's just my opinion. Let me know about yours in the comment section down below. Now we have got Death Toll Chapter 1. Now, Death Toll Chapter 1, I really never understood why the safe room was so vertical. Like, why is it that we go underneath of a giant building to go up a hill to go to another giant building? Plus, also, there's just a lot of bizarre spots in this safe room that you don't even need to end up visiting. Like, why is there this one staircase that can take you above the safe room so that way you can be in this room? I understand that there's loot up there, but it also feels like that the way that they have the windows laid out was either A, for an opportunity for you to snipe down at zombies and guard your team, which would leave you to being flanked by zombies, or B, it just gives these zombies a place to hide so that way they can jump on you like a hunter or something. I just think that this is just unnecessary space, especially in a forest like oriented level, especially in this part. So I just think that this is unnecessary in my opinion, and it was just making the map feel more like filler. But that's just my opinion. Now we've got Swamp Fever Chapter 1. Now, Swamp Fever in the beginning first chapter doesn't really have a lot of water until, funnily enough, right before the safe room, but it's not the biggest offender of all the chapters. Chapter 1 is actually pretty land-oriented, which I like. I like how that you, for example, only have it for a brief period of time with the water. The water is infrequent, so when it's an inconvenience, it's like, okay, if I get through this, I'll be fine. Not that it's just a constant struggle the entire map, because if it's just struggle, it's not fun. And I also understand that having fun and no struggle leads to boredom, so you gotta find that balance. The first chapter of Swamp Fever has a very good template. I will just say this though, as my closing thoughts on this particular safe room, is that I just don't like how crowded it is, because I'm not claustrophobic or anything, but this map makes me feel claustrophobic. Now we have Chapter 1 of Dark Carnival. Now here's the thing, Chapter 1 of Dark Carnival, I understand, is the introductory chapter. It's supposed to allow you to be able to warm up to the map, because the carnival is not until Chapter 2 and later. The thing is that Chapter 1 has always been my least favorite because of the fact that I just like the carnival that much. But also, here's the thing, is that just this chapter by itself, in my opinion, if it wasn't tied to Dark Carnival, I would say that I really just do not like this chapter. I'd give it a chance because I know what it leads up to, because, you know, when I climb that hill and I see that carnival, I'm like, yay, I made it. So it's that progression system, rewarding system of mine, where it's like, hey, you know, I completed this little trek, and now I'm finally where I need to be. But I don't like doing that trek initially. I think that climbing through the water, climbing through the hill, climbing through all the zombies, and also just risking like a whole bunch of unnecessary dangers from the environment. Like, I've said this before with all the other maps, and I will continue to say this over and over again, I just do not like the environment trying to kill me. It's annoying. It always will be annoying, and that's just, in my opinion. I understand that some people don't mind, but I do. And I think that having it where going from risking a fall damage to running in the water to having to climb up the hill and also having bushes surrounding it. I mean, it's like, you know, you're trying to find the light at the end of the tunnel if the tunnel was going around in several different directions as if it was a roller coaster on steroids, because you loop and turn and go up and down and side to side. And it's just so much work. So if it wasn't Dark Carnival, I would be a lot more harsher on this, I'm not going to lie. But I will say this, is that the safe room, luckily, is the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a reward for doing a lot of hard work. Now we have Chapter 3 of the Parish. Now, Chapter 3 of the Parish, the cemetery, is like the last big part before you get to the safe room. and they lay it out so that way it feels like a maze. I think this is the most creative like aspect of the director trying to take advantage of the environment in a way that makes sense, because it's more rather about the player than the environment itself. I understand completely if, like, for example, the environment is like trying to use rain or zombies or whatever to kill me, but I really can't blame the environment when the result of me escaping is on me. The environment's not attacking me, it just exists. And so, for example, if I'm wanting to get to the safe room, I have to use my 200 IQ plays to figure out what is the exit route of this cemetery so I can get to the safe room. And when you're being chased by zombies, it requires you to think on your feet and think well on your feet. And this is something that I enjoy. This is the brain tease that I like, where I think I'm creatively being rewarded for my quick thinking. And that's fun to me. I think that this safe room is a little bit far away than I would like. I mean, it's a little bit far away in terms of just the entire chapter as a whole, because the entire chapter, if you think about it from beginning to end, is big. But since we're only really talking about safe room location to like the last like chunk of the map, the last quarter, I would say that the cemetery is pretty fun. I think that trying to go through it as if it's a hedge maze is very unique, and I think that overall this is a very well designed safe room location. Now we've got Dead Air Chapter 3. Here's the thing with Dead Air Chapter 3, is that this is a very great example of showing how far that civilization is gone. Because with No Mercy and Dead Air, I think one of the reasons why that I like these maps so much is because seeing a ruined city or a ruined airport brings more apocalyptic type of vibes to me. It's one thing where you're out in a forest in just generic horror movie style, but I think more of like serial killers like Michael Myers and stuff like that rather than zombies. But when I see like a complete airport just in ruins and laid to waste, like almost like finding an old temple, it just makes me feel so immersed and really realize how alone you are in the zombie apocalypse of Left 4 Dead. That's one of the reasons why I also think that Left 4 Dead 1 was just naturally more scary too, might I add, because I've had a whole video talking about this. But I think that the reason why Left 4 Dead 1 is more scary is just because you feel more alone. In Left 4 Dead 1's universe, you really have nobody other than the main survivors, except for like the rescue vehicle people, and like that's it. You really have nobody. I mean, you have the promise of the military, but I mean, how much of them is left? We really don't know. And with Left 4 Dead 1, when you have like a ruined city or an airport where you expect to see people, instead you just see the Walking Dead, you realize like how far this green flu thing has gone in such a short period of time, that civilization, just humanity, is gone. And that sinks harder than if you just saw like an open forest or something where your mind is left more to interpretation. Now we have Blood Harvest Chapter 2. Now here's the thing, is that, like I said, I enjoyed Dead Air and No Mercy more as maps, but if we have to rank them based off of safe room locations, I have to say that Chapter 2 of Blood Harvest is just naturally better. The layout is basically straightforward and makes it easy for somebody that's inexperienced to understand as much as a veteran player to understand. That's really all it has going for it, so I'm going to move on to the next safe room now. Now we've got Chapter 2 of the Parish. Now, from the panic event on Chapter 2 to the safe room itself is really not that much additional steps. Here is the thing, though, is that because of the lack of steps, how do we really rank this without talking about the panic event itself in great detail? Because the last half of the map is basically that panic event. And I think that trying to focus it more on the panic event defeats the purpose of this ranking. So it's really hard to exactly give an opinion on this safe room in particular. I will just say this though, is that since the panic event is so critical to the functioning of trying to get to the safe room and just the progression system of Left 4 Dead, I will just say this. When it comes to the panic event for this chapter, it's really good. I have no problem with the panic event, and I think the panic event itself is good, and I don't think it really leaves you in a situation where you're either too alive or too dead. So the fact that it's briefly just going to end up being a few more steps before you get to the safe room really means that, honestly, as long as you're not a terrible player, you could end up getting through this with ease. Now we've got Coldstream Chapter 3, and Coldstream Chapter 3 makes me laugh, I'm not gonna lie, because I love how that spontaneously, all of a sudden, that there's just a military strike, even though there's been no signs of the military thus far throughout the entire campaign, and cars just fall everywhere. It's just like, okay, I guess now we have to fight zombies. Fuck me. It's just all of a sudden, boom, problem. There's no build up to it, and I just think that that's just comedic relief in my opinion more than anything. Now we have the first chapter of the Passing. Now the Passing campaign on chapter 1 has a lot of core elements of what makes Left 4 Dead great at the wedding. Number 1 is that there is going to end up being the Bride Witch, which brings a little bit of scariness back to the Left 4 Dead series again, because Left 4 Dead 1, as we know, is the more scary game of the two, so it's really hard for in Left 4 Dead 2 to be scary, but this is one of the key moments. Then I also think in addition to that, that's cool how that if you end up playing the Midnight Rider song, Save Me Some Sugar, the witch will attack you, which ends up making you have to think, maybe this witch has also got some humanity left and it's hurt from being like left on, like, for example, its wedding day. So you get to end up seeing a really scary moment that brings a lot of stuff to the story that's 100% optional, where you can end up having a boss fight and a horde summoning step. And you also get a lot of loot for it because the wedding has a crap ton of guns and grenades and all that beautiful stuff that we all love. So that means that we not only just have the safe room stuff, we also have the ability to get really, really geared up on just the first chapter by itself. The progression system to get to the safe room on the first chapter of the Passing was really well executed, and I hope that they replicate it again someday. Now we've got the safe room on the second chapter of Hard Rain. Now here's the thing with Hard Rain, is that I like chapter 1 and 2. A lot of people just assume I hate all of Hard Rain, but that's not entirely true. I just don't like anything beyond chapter 2. So let's talk about why I like elements of chapter 2 of Hard Rain. Now, chapter 2 of Hard Rain, let me remind you all of the concept of this chapter, just in case any of you are new to the Left 4 Dead series and are not quite familiar with it. So, within chapter 2 of Hard Rain, the concept is that you are at a sugar mill. In the Left 4 Dead universe, sugar will attract witches, which means that this chapter has a unique element where there is witches everywhere. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus sometimes throughout this entire single chapter just by itself. It's crazy. And sometimes they can be all at once and just clumped together in a big group, or they can end up being spread out throughout the campaign. You never know. But the ending of this chapter is the very interesting part, the adrenaline rush, if you will, because here's the element that is the fun part of this map, is that when you've completed the panic event step where you've called the elevator, you can see the safe room. You can see it over yonder at the gas station. All you have to do is just do one thing, and that's go there, but in order to get there, you have to go through the sugarcane. Now, the sugarcane has grown to a height that is taller than you, so you have to go through a maze of sorts to get to it. It is pretty much just a straight shot, but I wouldn't advise that you do that because you need to be careful in here, because in there with you is a undetermined amount of witches. Within that sugarcane, there are witches that may be far away from you or sometimes right next to you, and you don't know until sometimes it's too late. It is luck, and that chance to end up having a completely scot-free victory or having instant death and demise, or at the very least somewhere in the middle, that's the fun part about this chapter. That's the fun part about trying to get to this safe room, is that you're basically playing Russian roulette with your life. Okay, guys, and then shortly thereafter, we have got the first chapter of Hard Rain now with its safe room. I believe that the first chapter of Hard Rain is going to end up probably being my favorite. I just like the fact that it's no witches, no BS, no rain, it's just normal Left 4 Dead. And it's also a completely straight line to the safe room. The only way you could really die is by anything hiding in the shadows, so unless you were jumped by zombie Batman, you end up getting this. Okay guys, now we've got the second chapter of Dead Air. Now the second chapter of Dead Air, I'm really going to start this around the office, I would say, in terms of like the safe room area, because when you end up having to go through the offices, this is another one of those apocalyptic vibes in my opinion, where you just see these empty, like, just rooms and just offices out of nowhere, and you realize that these people that were working a 9 to 5 may have died to the zombie apocalypse while at work. A while. That would be a way to go. Can you imagine dying at your 9 to 5 job? Oh god, that would suck. But chapter 1 and 2 of Dead Air honestly remind me a lot of the beginning of No Mercy, with just the immersion that I felt. That and a little bit of parkour, just because there's a lot of parkour elements in chapter 2 of Dead Air, and I think that's also just a nice touch. Now we've got Chapter 1 of Dead Air. Chapter 1 of Dead Air reminds me a lot of Chapter 1 of No Mercy. You're pretty much going down the same path in order to get to the safe room with just being in a different type of building. You spawn in a greenhouse in comparison to an apartment building, and you're trying to descend the building so that way you can be able to get to the hotel, and that way you can end up getting into the kitchen. The thing is, though, is that in No Mercy, the only difference is instead you're trying to descend the apartment buildings so that way you can descend and go to the subway. But you're basically doing this thing where you're going around in circles but downward and going down the staircases and trying to end up getting to the safe room that's at the bottom, having a vertical oriented map. All in all, this safe room location is really solid because it basically replicates the flow of No Mercy. And No Mercy is like one of the best maps in Left 4 Dead, so trying to copy that formula was a really good idea on Valve's part. Okay guys, so next is going to be Chapter 3 of Dark Carnival, which is going to be the one with the roller coaster. Now the safe room is really not in a bad spot, it's just a matter of getting to it. The roller coaster is fun, but it's really not that safe. You are completely exposed to any special infected that wants to get you. You really aren't safe until like the very, very end of the roller coaster, where you go through the little tunnel that at least has walls around you, and then maybe, like I would say, probably where the switch is, because at least in that area, it's a little bit harder for specialists to get to you, but that's just my personal opinion about this spot. And now we have NSenr's Chapter 1 safe room. NSenr has a lot of similarities to No Mercy, much more than Dead Air ever could achieve. The only big difference with NSenr in comparison to No Mercy is just that the building is on fire. No biggie. But on a serious note though, guys, the fire in Left 4 Dead is just gimmicky, it's not necessary, and it hurts the player more than it helps the player. It even hurts the special infected. I mean, crap, in Versus mode, the special infected die just as much as the survivors sometimes because they're always being lit on fire. But I do gotta give Valve credit, they did end up making a memorable map because there is only one NSenr in Left 4 Dead. There's only one type of map that even feels like NSenr, and the closest to that is No Mercy. It's just the only difference is the challenge of the fire is removed. But having that in NSenr works for it because it just feels like harder No Mercy. If you think about it, No Mercy was the first ever map for Left 4 Dead, so it made sense about why it was easy, but all Valve did was just take that core element, that good gameplay design, and just give it a little bit of an extra oomph. It's just like, hey, what if we did No Mercy, but on fire? So it's a little bit harder, so that way the veteran players can end up having fun, and the newbies can still also be able to understand it and not die either. We now have the 4th chapter of the Parish. The 4th chapter of the Parish is easy to understand for new players and veteran players alike. It is clear and understandable what the objective is and how to get said objective, and you were rewarded for it. The safe room on the 4th chapter of the Parish campaign is basically 2 safe rooms. When you end up going to the safe room, there is a ladder that takes you up to a completely other safe room because they reset all the med kits and all the guns and all the grenades. So normally when you go into a safe room, you end up having like maybe a few guns, the 4 main med kits, and an ammo stash, and that's it. But you get double, almost triple the amount of stuff by just going upward. You have much more supplies in a given safe room on this safe room in particular, pretty much more than any other safe room in the entire series. Now we have Coldstream Chapter 1. You probably were not expecting me to put this so high up on the list, but I wanted to point out something to you. And I want to ask you guys a question. Do you agree with me when I say this, that this might be one of the fastest safe rooms to get to in the entire series? If you were to legitimately try to go from the beginning of the campaign to this safe room speedrun style on the normal difficulty, or even the easiest difficulty, don't you think without cheating that you could get there in less than a few minutes? You could probably get there in like a minute or 2. The map is really not that big on Chapter 1, so there's really no room for you to die. You really don't have to walk that far to get to it. It's just the map starts, and you do a little bit of a move around here or there, and then that's it. You're just boom, into the safe room, and you might not be even touched. And the funny thing is that the safe room is underneath of a bunker. So it's not only safe, it's an extra safe room because of how completely concealed it is in terms of like where it's placed in the map. Yes, there are zombies down there and you have to kill them, but it's really like one mini horde and then that's it. If you just shoot them before they can get up to you with a shotgun, you win. Hell, you don't even have to open the bunker door the entire way. You can just like not commit to it and you can just end up opening the bare minimum, just fall in early. And now we have Death Toll Chapter 3 safe room, and this is going to be the one with the infamous church guy. And I just want to give an honorable mention to this safe room real quick, is that if we were ranking this based off of how cool a safe room was, this would be number 1 for me. It's my personal favorite safe room ever. The encounter with Church Guy feels like a climax in a movie where you're facing like one of the main villains that you were not expecting. Just in one safe room, we meet another survivor, find out that he's a complete lunatic, he tries to kill us by calling zombies on us, and then when we finally end up defeating the zombie horde, he turns into a special infected when we try to open the door and tries to kill us himself. Then when we finally end up getting into the safe room and we're completely okay, we see truly how deranged that this guy was by reading his wall writings, where he constantly writes the phrase, "better safe than sorry," which is just such a cool attention to detail by Valve. This is such a uniquely creative safe room that they could have just ended up just easily just making it a generic safe room and not have this guy, but just having this one little element, this one single key element, makes this my favorite safe room. And now, guys, finally within this ranking, we have got our first safe room of No Mercy. Can you believe that at this point in the list, we are now finally getting to No Mercy? It just shows you truly how good that No Mercy is of a map. So what is my very first chapter? Well, this is going to end up being Chapter 3. This is the one with the sewers. Now, even though the sewers are my least favorite chapter in terms of the safe room locations for No Mercy, it's still a significantly much better safe room layout than any of the other maps that we have had thus far. There's just one main objective, is get out of the sewer. So instinctively, you don't even necessarily have to be paying attention to the dialogue. Instinctively, the player is just going to look for a ladder to climb up and escape. And the cool thing is that when you finally do find that ladder, which is not difficult to find, may I add, you are immediately at No Mercy Hospital, which is the one thing that's been teased since the very beginning of this campaign, letting you know that you are finally safe. Now we've got the second chapter of Dark Carnival, and this is the one with the merry-go-round and the Tunnel of Love. The merry-go-round, the Tunnel of Love, when you go through them, they kind of make a S shape. So if you go from the entrance of the merry-go-round, by the time you get to the Tunnel of Love, you've done a right to a left to a sort of middle straight type of angle, mostly to the right, and it makes kind of like an S shape, which I didn't notice until I realized it when I looked up above the map. And that's something that I think is unique to just that map, because I've never seen any other map laid out that way before to get to the safe room at the least. But the merry-go-round is fun. I also do believe that the Tunnel of Love is also a really great concept for a safe room cosmetically. Plus also, if you just want to be a little bit ballsy, the merry-go-round does not have to be turned off to get to the safe room. You can choose to ignore the panic event and just let it keep going infinitely, which doesn't make sense from a lore standpoint, but I just find it funny how that this is the only panic event you can do this with, I think, which is just unique to this map itself. Okay guys, now we have got the Parish Chapter 1. Now this map also feels very short and very easy to complete, a lot like the beginning of Coldstream, but just a bit longer. There's also a really great balance in difficulty because there's really not that many threats that feels overwhelming, but there is still some threats because this is like the final big disc map for Left 4 Dead that it's not going to be very, very easy like Dead Center, Dark Carnival, or even Swamp Fever was. You end up having it where there's an alarmed car towards the very end, right where you're about to get to the safe room and you think you're scot-free, and you have to make sure that you're very careful not to shoot it. And it's in a position that you have to be very careful, because if you end up aiming your gun just a little bit in the wrong direction, it will hit it because it is in the line of fire. The safe room is quick to get to, easy to understand how to get to it, and also lastly is that it's fun to end up getting to it. It's not challenging to the point where it's annoying, it's just challenging to the point where it's a good video game. Next is going to end up being Chapter 2 of No Mercy. And see, the thing is that even though I know that this chapter is a lot longer than some of the other ones, it feels like it goes by so fast because it's just so much fun to play. It's not a worry to me about how long it's going to take me to get to the safe room, because when I'm playing on this map, it's not even really a priority anymore to finish the game. It's more of a priority for me to enjoy the game. I'm not trying to speedrun to the safe room so I can get off the game quicker. I'm trying to take my time getting to the safe room so I can end up enjoying my experience while on the way there. And that's when you know that you've done something right. Now we have Chapter 1 of No Mercy. Chapter 1 of No Mercy is almost perfect for a safe room location. You get there so fast, with ease, it's fun, immersive, you get so much good loot, so many good experiences, and you do not pay attention to time. It's just fun video gaming. The last few chapters here that I've been talking about, specifically for their safe rooms, if you pay attention closely, it's not even about the safe rooms really anymore, it's about the journey to the safe room. Just good gameplay design, and that's really what we all want at the end of the day, is not be in a rush to finish the game like it's some sort of chore. We just want to experience it, be immersed in it, be the video game, and the video game shall be our memories. Alrighty guys, next is going into being Chapter 4 of No Mercy, and No Mercy, man, I swear to God, the more and more I pay attention to this ranking, the more and more I appreciate this map. It's got so many great things going on for it, but Chapter 4 specifically, I just love how it goes from elevator to being on a top floor of a hospital where you could easily be knocked off of it and just completely killed and have to start all over again. Normally, I hate those types of gameplay mechanics. I normally would not like working super hard to get to the end of something and having no checkpoints just to die at the very end. But I will say this, is that it is a guilty pleasure of mine to charge somebody off of No Mercy Hospital when I'm playing in my free time. This map, this chapter, this safe room is extremely fun, and I love it so much. But guys, now we finally reach the #1 safe room location in all Left 4 Dead 2 out of both all of Left 4 Dead 1 and all of Left 4 Dead 2's maps. And which is it? Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite safe room location, all Left 4 Dead, has to go to Chapter 2 of Dead Center. And why is that? #1, you end up having every single gun in the entire game at your disposal, ready whenever you want it. Because you end up having Whitaker's gun shop. You have all the guns, shotguns, sniper rifles, assault rifles. You even have like some of the weird miscellaneous things such as the pistols, even medkits. You pretty much have everything ready for you. And then when you finally end up getting the cola, which is the main objective of this chapter, you can also end up going back into the gun store. There's nothing stopping you. You can restock on whatever stuff that you use trying to complete that panic event. You can use all of them. You don't have to let them go to waste. Not only that, but you also have supplies in the grocery store that you can use. You are not stopped on what type of thing you can use against the zombies. And then finally, when you end up getting to the safe room, you have its own supplies. So you have Whitaker's gun shop, you have the grocery store, and the safe room itself all ready to provide loot for you in a very close proximity. This is not only #1 the safest safe room in the entire game, but this is the safest chapter in all of Left 4 Dead. You do not have to end up worrying about running out of ammo, running out of supplies, running out of medkits. You are completely stacked. It's like playing survival in the normal campaign. And if you wanted to, you can even juggle all these with the gameplay mechanics in Left 4 Dead. You can just carry all the items from the gun shop with you to the grocery store, or carry them all the way to the safe room, and then stack them. So if you're on, like, for example, an expert run, and you want to be able to have it where you can just keep repeatedly going back to the safe room if you keep getting, like, too much damage when you first leave on the next chapter, you can bring all that crap with you. There's nothing stopping you from being just completely armored to the teeth with this particular chapter. This safe room is God. Like, this safe room is the peak in terms of keeping you alive in this game, and that's why it's the #1 safe room in all Left 4 Dead 2. In today's ranking video, we are going to be ranking all the branching director paths in Left 4 Dead. Now, as we transition out of the intro and into the subject matter, right before the ranking, I would like to clarify what exactly is going to be the criteria for this ranking video. So what do I exactly mean by branching, changing, or alternative director paths in Left 4 Dead? What I am referring to is any time that the director makes a significant change to the flow of a map. An example I can give is when you're playing on the 3rd chapter of Dead Center, where in one scenario you can go left and you can end up shooting the alarmed glass, versus when you end up going to the right and you can end up opening the alarmed door. I am not, however, in this video going to be ranking the minute changes that the director does, for example, such as putting an alarmed car in one area versus another. I am more rather looking at the blatantly obvious ones where they put something clearly in your way and you have to change your pathing now to get to the objective. So as we conclude this important clarification at the beginning of the video, I would also like to mention one more thing, is that since I am not addressing every single thing that the director changes in Left 4 Dead, this video is going to exclude certain things. So I am purposely only going to be picking the ones that I believe are the most important to the gameplay, the ones that are obvious and blatantly affect the way that you traverse a map. So if I do exclude something from this list, please do elaborate in the comment section down below where you think I should have put it in my list and also where you would have put it in your own list. But yeah, everybody, with all that being said, let's now rank all the branching director paths in Left 4 Dead. Alrighty guys, so for the very first director path that I am ranking for this list, this is going to end up taking place on Chapter 4 Dark Carnival, where you have the possibility to end up having a giant metal fence spawn as soon as you get out of the safe room and block your path, so that way you cannot go straight, instead you have to go left. It's a minute difference, but I do think that's worthy enough of being on this list, because you technically do have to go a little bit more out of your way if you end up having that spawn your way, which means that you just do not have a clear shot. Now, even though it is a little bit more inconvenient to go left when this thing does spawn your way, I do like the fact that it does change the gameplay up just a little bit, because when you end up having director changes, you want to end up being minute enough that it's not going to significantly punish the player, but also at the exact same time, you do not want to end up having it where it's going to end up being completely boring, where it literally does not affect the gameplay whatsoever, and therefore you don't notice. The way I'm looking at when I rank these things is I'm not necessarily ranking them in terms of easiest to hardest, because that would just mean that the list would just end up being quite obvious from beginning to end. I am more rather ranking them based off their uniqueness and what they contribute to the flow and the variety of the game. Does the game end up feeling fresh and novel when you get one path versus another sometimes, and does it end up bringing life to the game when it happens? Alrighty guys, coming in for our next spot here, this is going to end up being the dynamic path that happens on Chapter 1 of the Parish, where you have the possibility of having it where you can just go straight through this tunnel, versus the alternative option where you can end up also going over the staircase and jumping over the fence. For me personally, I prefer jumping over the fence when I am a survivor, but if I am a charger or a special infected in general, I like it when the survivors have to go through the tunnel, because that means I can pinch them in there and I can be able to get like a nice collateral kill. So a way you can look at it is that one scenario is in favor of the survivors, the other scenario is in favor of the special infected, which means that it is a 50-50 coin flip about whether or not that you're going to get lucky or you're going to have a minor inconvenience. Alrighty, coming up next on the list is going to end up being the car maze that is going to be on Chapter 3 of the Parish. Now, this is interesting. I did specify how I wasn't going to be ranking like when a car, for example, is alarmed in a particular spot, but I will make the exception for this, is because the car alarm maze is very unique, and it only ever shows up in this one particular instance. Back when I was younger and I used to play Left 4 Dead on my Xbox, I always thought that this part of the Parish was one version only. I thought that it was only going to end up being a certain way and you just had to memorize it. And then eventually when I returned to the game a few years ago on PC, I realized that the director is always constantly changing it. It's just that the differences are subtle and you have to really look for them. Most people just subconsciously adapt, so therefore they will never notice unless they're just blatantly looking for it. Now, the reason why I also like this too is that even though it's just simply car alarms, is because this part is extremely important. Because if you step on any of these car alarms, you will summon a horde. So depending on how many car alarms that you trigger, you can summon a crap load of zombies. And the car alarms are in a particular way where you can end up stepping on a multitude of them at once. You can either be in a really good situation where you don't set off any of them, or you can step on literally every single one of them, and now you have the entire zombie horde after you. And now, guys, we move on to NSenr, where we are going to be talking about the panic event on Chapter 3 that we mentioned at the beginning of the video, where you have the possibility to end up going left and shooting the alarmed glass, or you can go right and you can open the alarmed door. Now, to my knowledge, I believe that this is the only branching director path that you can have any sort of influence on, depending on how well you do or do not do, because we know that you can end up changing this based off of how many people are alive on your team. If everybody is alive on your team, you will always get the right path, which is where you have to open up the alarmed door. If you have a few people dead on your team, you will always get the left-hand side, which is going to end up being the one with the breakable alarmed glass window. I like the fact that the director is smart enough to end up giving the players the left-hand side option more times than not, when you end up having a few people dead on your team versus the right-hand option, because the right-hand option with the alarmed door is going to end up being the worst of the two options in my opinion. And if you end up having it where it's just down to chance and not necessarily just how well you were doing, if you had the right-hand option with the alarmed door when you were already doing really bad, this would just add insult to injury. But I am glad that the director is mindful enough to understand that a panic event is not easy and that the players could end up using a break if they have gotten to this point. Alrighty guys, so now we move on to the final spot, and this is going to be my personal opinion, but I believe that the best significantly changing director path in Left 4 Dead is going to be the cemetery on the parish. The cemetery is immediately after the alarmed car maze, so we have two maze things back to back, funnily enough. It's just that one's with cars. But yes, we have another maze-like director path, which is going to take place with the cemetery. Now, while I was doing research for this video, I stumbled across this web form that was from over a decade ago. It was 12 years ago, and these people were, funnily enough, talking about exactly what we're mentioning here in this video, which is going to be the individual director paths, because for some reason, nobody really, other than these guys, ever talked about them this specifically. Now, towards the beginning, with one of the first replies, a guy was talking about the cemetery on the parish campaign. Now, I cannot confirm or deny this because the game has changed so much over the last 10 years, and I don't know if this was ever removed or patched out, but the guy claims that there's 8 different versions of the cemetery on the parish campaign, which is just insane to think for a game in 2009. If this is the case and is still in the game, this deserves to be number 1 because there's so much variety with the director pathing. Now, when I played the parish campaign, when I'm in the cemetery, I've really only ever noticed like 2 versions. I've never really noticed any big differences when I'm in there because I'm mostly focusing on survival and special infected. But I have noticed that every single time I do go in there, I never end up having like a photographic memory of exactly where to go. I'm always changing where I have to end up moving to be able to escape that place. So there very well might be the possibility that there is a lot of minute changes instead of one big giant change that makes it that way you constantly have to keep getting out in different areas whenever you load up that chapter. So yeah, that's what I personally think for this list. I think that the cemetery deserves to be number 1 because if there is 8 different versions. Hell, if there was even like only like let's say 3 or 4, that is still a lot of versions, especially for a game from 2009. Most of the director pathings only end up having like 1 or 2 versions. So the fact that Valve thought to end up thinking that far ahead really just shows how much hard work and love that they put into this game. Today's video, we are finally ranking all the Left 4 Dead 2 versus maps. I've spent the last several weeks playing versus mode again with not only my friends, but also with random players. And I've been re-experiencing all the good and bad qualities about this game mode. I have experienced clutches, fails, raging, rage quits, people talking in chat and being jerks, people being very nice and being uplifting in chat. I have experienced some moments where I end up goofing up and doing something funny. I am experiencing things where I did something awesome and I got to show it off. And all that is going to be presented here throughout this video. Now, I also wanted to mention this because I thought that this would be important when it comes to this video, is I have to address that I consider myself a casual versus player. I predominantly play the Left 4 Dead single player and also the other single player modes such as survival mode. I barely touch versus on a regular basis. So this very list throughout this video is going to be from the perspective of someone who considers themselves a casual player. So with all that being said, I am now going to take all the 14 maps that are available in Left 4 Dead 2 and ranking them in accordance to how I believe that they play from worst to best in versus mode. So everybody make sure that you sit back, relax, grab a drink, grab a snack, take a dump, and I hope you end up enjoying me ranking all the versus maps in Left 4 Dead 2. With it. The worst map in Left 4 Dead 2 versus mode is Coldstream. Coldstream is not meant for versus mode. Period. This map has a lot of elements that make it very challenging and put you in tedious situations. But when you end up making it so that way that you're playing against sentient players who know how that the game works and can manipulate certain things to work into their advantage, it makes the map tenfold more harder than it ever needed to be. It is way too biased in favor of the special infected. There is way too many chokeholds on this map, so it feels like you're getting attacked by Batman every 5 seconds. And the map also has way too many dynamic events and parts of the map that go out of their way to kill you, in addition to the special infected already doing it. So survivors are being double teamed at any given moment. Now, if you like playing as a special infected, you're going to have a field day with Coldstream because there is so many insta-kill spots on this map. There is the tower. There's going to end up being the flowing water on Chapter 2. There is going to be pretty much the entirety of Chapter 3 with before and on and getting off of the bridge. And then finally the waterfall on Chapter 4. Even if you didn't die immediately upon impact, you could pretty much very easily die a few seconds later if a charger were to hit you off of any of these surfaces. It's way too easy to get killed by a special infected on Coldstream. And if you don't believe me, just look at the public versus queue. There is no games of Coldstream pretty much at any given time. It's just the same few maps over and over and over again. Now, I know that this map was approved by Valve, but it was one of the 2 maps in Left 4 Dead that wasn't created by Valve, which means that it ends up showing quite a lot, actually. I like Coldstream as a single-player map, but only as a single-player map. Coldstream is a map that I can look past its flaws because I like the vibe of the map, and I also enjoy parts of the map that not a lot of players like, because I find them as a fun challenge. They're things that I personally enjoy. But specifically for versus mode, this map is just not fun. It's just not. Alrighty guys, so now we are moving on to the next map in the list, and this is going to end up being Blood Harvest. Now, I already don't like Blood Harvest as a map. In fact, actually, referring back to my ranking maps video, I ended up putting Blood Harvest as the 3rd of the very bottom. Now, originally within that video, the only 2 maps that I ranked worse than Blood Harvest was Crash Course and Hard Rain. So why am I putting Blood Harvest lower than both Crash Course and also Hard Rain in this video in comparison to that video? This might be an oversimplification, but this is the best way I can describe it. It's just not fun. There are certain elements in these maps that make them just good maps. Not even necessarily for a specific game mode, but just in general. And Blood Harvest does not have those qualities. And because Blood Harvest is lacking these good qualities in the original campaign, it means it's also going to leak, therefore, into every other subsequent game mode that this map is featured in. So what's wrong with Blood Harvest? Number 1, the map is boring. The only thing that this map has in terms of significance is that it's the last map that is on the disc of Left 4 Dead. And in the campaign, you get rescued by the military. That's it. If those 2 things were not a factor about this map, the map would fall into a state of irrelevancy. The map is gray and dull. It takes place in a boring-ass forest and a boring-ass farmland. There's no unique, fun panic event or dynamic event. In fact, actually, the panic and dynamic events about this map are either boring or just flat out annoying. Speaking of which, this leads into a perfect segue into talking about one particular part about Blood Harvest. And it's going to be this part right here. Fuck this crop maze. This crop maze is unfair. When you try to get into this crop maze, you have to walk past some crows, and no matter what you do, they will get angry and they will alert zombies to your position, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I have been playing Left 4 Dead for several years of my life, over a decade at this point, and I still, to this day, cannot easily find my way out of this damn crop maze. No matter how much I memorize it, I still get lost. And we haven't even talked about the special infected. Oh no, we have not. So get this. The special infected can still use their wall hack ability and see you through this crop maze. And you cannot. So therefore, you're not only being attacked by all the common zombies you just alerted from pissing off the crows, but you are now surrounded and can be jumped from a 360-degree angle at any point by any of the special infected lurking in the shadows. You will never question the way a piece of corn looks more in your entire life, because you assume that a special infected is looking at you all the time from every direction. If you manage to be one of the very lucky few teams that can get through this and just get to the farmhouse, you are at a massive advantage in comparison to the enemy team, because it takes a while to get through this maze. But once you get through it, it's very easy to navigate the rest of the map because it's a part of the finale, so all you gotta do is just camp at the farmhouse at that point, and you can see. But if you don't get past that part and you get stuck there and die, to try to make a comeback for the rest of this match will end up being a make it or break it level for you. Okay, so now we're moving on to another map. We're finally ranking one of the two maps you expected me to rank at some point towards the beginning of the video. And this is going to end up being Hard Rain. Now, I have said this before in countless videos, but it must be said. Never, under any circumstance, should you die in a video game because of a lack of sight. Ever. Now look, I know that there's going to be some people in the comments that are going to defend Hard Rain and say it is not that bad. And to those of you that are going to say that, I respect your opinion. It's nothing about you. It's just a personal opinion of mine about my experiences on this map. But I must ask you this also. Do you guys just enjoy not being able to see all the time? Because after the first 2 chapters, that's just this entire map. It's just not being able to see. I understand the map being able to kill you with dynamic events in unique ways, such as, for example, making a trap here so that way you can fall off of a cliff, or make it so that way a tank can spawn and crush you with a rock randomly. I understand that, but the resulting cause of my death in a zombie apocalypse should not be from water. There is nothing more infuriating when I am playing on this map and all of a sudden the game wants to create a rainstorm and I cannot see more than 2 feet in front of me. You know that old saying, I could beat you with one arm tied behind my back? I don't think it would be as menacing, nor would you be as confident if you said, hey, yeah, I can beat you with half of my vision. And this is critical to keep in mind, is that the special infected, even though that they end up having the same rain pixels falling on their screen, they end up having wall hacks. They can see you through walls, so they know where to spawn to be able to line themselves up despite the rain and be able to get you, because they don't need to live long. They just need to live long enough to incapacitate you or handicap you, so eventually you will die. Now, if I have not convinced you at this point that that is all unfair and definitely biased towards the special infected, let me bring up one more key takeaway. The sugar mill. You guys remember the sugar mill, right? The place where it's infested with witches. And also, I also need to remind you guys, the special infected can make the witch angry early. They just have to scratch her when she's looking at you, and she will attack you preemptively. Now imagine if there was 4, 5, or even up to 6 witches all at once in a given area. That's enough to get an instant team wipe if you have an enemy team that is smart enough to do that. Now yes, I understand that players are smart and they have adapted around this idea. They've been playing the game for years, and not every special infected is going to be able to pull off some sort of epic play with one of the Wandering Witches. I get that. And even if they did, it would be an epic play, and it would be really rewarding to get. But it's still annoying to come up against as a surviving player. It frustrates me to no end because this encourages players to camp instead of going and attacking others. You're waiting on the witch and letting her do the work while you just sit there and wait and left click over and over again. Pretty much the only reason why that Hard Rain is ranked a little bit higher than both Coldstream and Blood Harvest is because of map design. Hard Rain has a slightly better map design than both Coldstream and Blood Harvest because it's more open. It's less likely that you're going to die at a choke or also die from something that's unfair. Coldstream has too many chokes and dynamic map events that will kill you without you really even doing anything wrong, and that's not going to change. That's why it's at the bottom. Blood Harvest is boring and also is very inconvenient at certain parts, such as the crop maze that we talked about earlier. Even though Hard Rain is annoying with the rain, it's more of an annoyance, not a hindrance. In fact, actually, I've done this before in a prior episode of Myth-Busting Mondays a while back, where I found out if you tweak one of the settings, you can actually disable the rain effect in Hard Rain. Therefore meaning you can see. But I shouldn't have to do that every time I play Versus if I want to play on this map with a slight advantage. With video games, I want to test my skill, not my patience. Okay, rant over. So now we move on to another map that I don't particularly care for, but I'm honestly surprised that it was higher than these other prior 3. And this is going to end up being Crash Course. So this is probably going to be one of the last few maps that I'm really harsh on because, well, I mean, we pretty much know already what Crash Course is and what I'm going to say. Crash Course is in a weird conundrum where it's both way too long and way too short. It's one of 2 maps in the game that is 2 chapters long. There's a beginning, and then there's also a finale. But the thing is from safe room to safe room and destination to destination, It takes way too long and could have very easily been at least 3 chapters, if not possibly 4, for the entire campaign. It's already been proven before that Crash Course has been a rushed map on Valve's part, and it shows within the gameplay. The map does not feel finished. From both the perspective of the survivors and the special infected, it takes way too long to kill the other team or to survive the other team. And when you finally do make it to the safe room, you only have 1 more chapter, and then the game is just done. The entire game is 4 rounds. 2 rounds as a special infected and 2 rounds as a survivor. And then the game goes back to the main menu and you have to start all over again. And I also need to mention this because this is also important, is that for console players, you have to still pay for the Left 4 Dead DLC in order to end up playing on it. And the DLC has a problem right now where you can't exactly purchase it, and you have to go through a weird means in order to get it, which if you want to figure out how to buy Left 4 Dead digitally and also how to be able to get the DLC digitally, make sure you check out this video right here. But the DLC costs money and it's problematic. And so let's just say that you have Crash Course. Let's say you bought it before this DLC purchasing thing became a problem. But for other players, let's say that they still have this said problem. If let's say that you and your buddy wanted to play on versus mode, or let's just say you and your buddy wanted to play on just like, let's say Crash Course just in general, not even necessarily for versus mode. Let's just make it easy and just say you want to play Crash Course in general. Let's say you need an achievement or something. You can't play that map if their DLC is glitched. And in versus mode, circling back to it for a second, you need to have a minimum of 2 people to even play the game mode. So if nobody ends up having the DLC right now, because let's just say the DLC is not working, or if it's just also just a bad DLC, which Crash Course is, it's almost impossible to find a lobby for a public match. So Crash Course has not only got its map design working against itself, but also uncontrollable real-life events working against itself. You might not even be able to play Crash Course even if you wanted to, which is just funny because this map is so bad that even if you did get it, I doubt you would even find a lobby. Okay, so now we are moving on to the passing campaign. Now the passing is only slightly longer than Crash Course at 3 chapters instead of 2, but 3 is still better than 2 in my opinion. Now with the passing campaign, this campaign is not the best and it's also not the worst. But what I don't like about the passing campaign is once again it suffers from some prior elements that we've already addressed throughout this video sprinkled in throughout this map. This map has really annoying chokes. It also is very boring at times, and there's also rain occasionally that appears on this map for literally no other reason other than saying that there's a second map that has rain. And finally, the map is too short. I believe that a Left 4 Dead campaign for versus mode should end up being about 4 or 5 chapters because then it lasts about 8 to 10 rounds, which is like an hour-long game. The passing is not nearly as annoying or frustrating as the other prior 4. In fact, I would say that Crash Course was like the last bad map. This is like the beginning of the mediocre or okay maps, like in the middle area. And the reason why is because this map has a little bit of annoying stuff from the other prior 4, but nothing explicitly doubled down on or annoying in its own right. And now moving on to another map that is very similar to the passing but slightly better, this is the Sacrifice. The Sacrifice is once again only 3 chapters long, but doesn't really end up suffering from nearly as much BS. The map has slightly less chokes than the passing version, the map doesn't end up having rain, thank God, and then also finally, the Sacrifice is just a much more entertaining map to play on. The story and the ambiance alone make this map entertaining and immersive for me. Because eventually, at the very end of the campaign, the Sacrifice will end up having a sacrifice take place, where a player must end up putting their life on the line in order to save the betterment of their team. Now this puts the survivors in a very interesting circumstance because, sort of indirectly, they are trying to lose to try to win. They have to go out of their way to actually kill themselves in order to end up beating the game, which is kind of backwards for this game mode, because you're trying to survive to win, but for the Sacrifice, you have to die to win. And actually, you're put at a disadvantage here because you have to have at least a minimum of 2 people survive up to a certain point on the finale, otherwise you will lose. because in order to beat the sacrifice campaign, you must have a minimum of 2 people on the bridge at the very end of the game, so one person can stay up there while the other goes and sacrifices themselves. So this makes the survivors have to adjust their playstyle, where they're surviving for a certain point throughout the entire campaign, and then at the very end, they have to end up in their own way, getting themselves killed so that way their team can win. And they also have to have more people by the end of the game live, which means that they're also at a player's disadvantage. And if you play the sacrifice campaign with bots, good luck to you, because there's no way you are winning. Okay, now we are moving on to Death Toll. Now, Death Toll is a mid map, in my opinion, still. I don't think we're quite at the really great maps yet, because when it comes to Death Toll is just okay. It's not exactly a bad map. It doesn't really suffer from anything really annoying, honestly, other than one part of a specific chapter, which we'll get back into later. In terms of fun, though, the map is enjoyable. It's 5 chapters long, which means that's also going to end up being 10 rounds, because you also have to play as the other opposing team. I believe the 3rd chapter with Church Guy and the finale with the Boathouse are some of the most enjoyable chapters that you can play in all Left 4 Dead. But there's one glaring issue about Death Toll that just makes it not quite a great map. And that's going to end up being a panic event in Chapter 4. Oh, you guys are going to love this one. You guys remember the forklift panic event? Oh, this one is nasty. This one is just mean and frustrating to play on. If you are playing this panic event, you have to go balls to the wall to get to the safe room, because the exact moment that you end up starting that forklift and it crashes down and alerts the horde, you have to book it. If you down, you are screwed. Because what happens is that you have an endless horde that is coming after you. And the layout of this area in particular is somewhat strangely difficult for no reason other than just being difficult. Because you have to bob and weave and go through windows and up a staircase and back around again. And then finally you can then get into the safe room, which is blocked off by a fence. So why did we have to do all that? Why couldn't we just have just a straight shot for how many zombies are coming at us, like Valve? Like, why couldn't it be made easier? It's like Valve had a meeting where they were like, hey guys, we need to discuss versus maps. Death Toll is way too easy for the survivors. And then one guy in the back just goes, hey, what if we just decide to fuck them over at the very end of the map? We could end up making a little crisscross maze for no apparent reason. That's a great idea, Bill! It just gets way too difficult all of a sudden for no reason. It's just like smooth sailing, and then all of a sudden it's just like crapshoot right at the very end. It's not even exactly even easy for the special infected either, believe it or not, because it's a maze for them to navigate too. There's really not any good areas to climb around in this specific part. You can't really go up those little climbing yellow hand signal things that are on the walls. You have to go around the entire maze like the survivors do. So you're also equally as lost as them. And so you end up meeting in this weird intersection thing in the middle, and you're all just going at it in this one corner over and over and over again, and no one can really exactly seem to kill each other until somebody messes up just enough that they manage to end up either killing you or they sneak through and they get to the safe room. I don't know why that Death Toll is like this in this one chapter, but the rest of the map is fine. The rest of the map is just mid. There's some really decent parts with Chapter 3 and the finale, and I think that Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are a little bit boring, but at least they make sense. And then Chapter 4, for some reason, there's this weird shift all of a sudden, and the difficulty just spikes for no apparent reason, and I just think that that's just very weird and kind of uncalled for, in my opinion. Okay, now we have The Last Stand, and thank God that this map was good. Now, The Last Stand is still placed with what I would like to call the mid category. The map is not fantastic by any means, but it's a lot better than the other ones that we have played, significantly so. The main thing that it suffers from is that it's short. It's once again 2 chapters long. The only other map being 2 chapters is Crash Course, but The Last Stand plays so much better than Crash Course does, and any of the other maps, because it just got good gameplay design, good layout, good everything. This was the first map that we have had since Coldstream. In 8 years, we haven't had a single new map for Left 4 Dead, so everybody was putting a lot of hopes into this map, and they delivered. The mods and also Valve work together to make a very enjoyable experience for not only one game mode, but several, including their other main game mode, Versus. Let me just briefly list off some of the qualities that I like about The Last Stand. Number one, it's perfectly balanced for both the special infected and the survivors. It's not lopsided for one or the other. Number two, this map is genuinely enjoyable to play on, and it's not even canon. I even have a sense of nostalgia because of the fact that this came from survival mode in Left 4 Dead 1. You can very easily find all the new content from the Last Stand update in this map, because there's preemptive drops that you can end up getting, where you can end up finding some of the Last Stand guns. You can find some Easter eggs. You can also end up getting the secret golden crowbar melee weapon, which is able to be easily accessed on this map. There's even some slight changes, such as, for example, the special infected music for the tank has got this rock and roll vibe to it, and it's awesome to listen to. And one of the things I thought about later on, as this map kind of got older and I got used to it over the last 3 years, is that I kind of enjoy it being on the shorter side, to be honest. Think about it this way. The other really good Versus maps for Left 4 Dead are usually 4 or 5 chapters long. Meaning, if you played from the very beginning to the end, it's 10 rounds, and you have to play for about an hour's worth of your time. Whereas with The Last Stand, it's 2 chapters, or 4 rounds if you play from beginning to end. Which means you're really only at the very most playing up to like a half an hour, I would say. And that means that the games go by a lot quicker. So if I want to, I could be like, hey guys, do you want to play some Left 4 Dead? And they were like, oh, sorry, I'm kind of tight on time. I was like, wait, hold on, guys. We don't necessarily have to play the Parish or Dead Center or something. We can just play The Last Stand. We can get this done in 20 to 30 minutes. And they could be like, okay, sure, why not? And it gives me an excuse to be able to play with some people. These are the very things that make me enjoy The Last Stand. The map, like I said, is mid, but it's a really, really good mid. And I think that this map could have been a lot better. It was just a bit longer. Now, yes, I gotta also keep in mind realistically that if we were to do that, it might have also made the map a little bit worse. So I rather would have it be 2 chapters long or 4 rounds for Versus and end up going by really fast and being good, than end up being longer and being like Crash Course or something where the map just does not play well. Okay, now for this map, this is going to be one of those maps where I was surprised with where it ended up, kind of like how that we had Coldstream being at the bottom at the beginning. But this is going to be a welcome change, and this is going to end up being Swamp Fever. In hindsight, the more I think about it, I think I was just a little too harsh on Swamp Fever over all these years. Some of the points that I complained about with this map were definitely valid complaints, but I think I amplified those too much based off of similarities to other maps that I dislike more. The main thing I said that I didn't like about Swamp Fever was the water, but the water really isn't that intrusive, and I was comparing it way too much with my feelings of the rain blocking my vision on, for example, things like Hard Rain, and I think that that made it so that way I kind of had a little bit of a blind bias towards Swamp Fever. Because playing it in Versus mode, when you get to play as the Special Infected and also have to play slightly differently when you're playing as a Survivor, it's honestly not that bad. Playing Versus mode on Swamp Fever gave me a newfound respect for the map. I always just thought that the map was okay or slightly under average, but in comparison to some of these other maps that I thought were pretty solid, and then playing them in Versus, I realized in hindsight that Swamp Fever generally does have good game design. It's not my favorite map of all time, but I do like the way that the map flows. There's no annoying features, really, in hindsight. It's a little bit gray and damp, which I don't like, but that's kind of what you would get with a swamp map. But now I'm starting to appreciate it more and think of it as one of the scarier maps in Left 4 Dead 2, because most of those were in Left 4 Dead 1. And Left 4 Dead 2 really doesn't have any creepy maps, other than 2 of them. And one of them is Swamp Fever. I've always, for some reason, had this unsettled and kind of like uncomfortable vibe while playing on Swamp Fever, and I can't exactly pinpoint what it is. I just feel like that there's always just something looking at me. It might be just a random zombie hillbilly that's looking at me in the distance, but I don't really know why. But for some reason on this map, no matter when I play it, at any point during the day or at the night, I just feel uncomfortable for some reason. But it's enough of a discomfort that it makes me immersed in the gameplay, and not something that I just strongly dislike as a gameplay mechanic. It gives me that satisfying, on-edge feeling, like, for example, when you're listening to a scary story. I don't know exactly why I like it, but I kind of like the unknown to a certain degree, at least a little bit. And when you're playing as the Special Infected, this map is also fun. There is some fair and really rewarding kill spots that you can get. For example, the most infamous one you could probably remember is going to end up being the Charger slamming you right into the swamp water. And the finale is something that I really enjoy. There's something satisfying about when you finally get past all the swamp water and you can walk on solid land again, and you're at the plantation house, and you finally are able to call rescue with Virgil, who's one of the best NPCs in the entire game. Swamp Fever is like a story development, honestly. You have gloomy beginning, where you don't know where you are, and you're recalling the events of the prior map. Then you end up having it where that you're slowly leading up to a climax where you're building up more and more and more optimism and hope, and then you finally get out of the swamp and you're more rather onto solid land, and you see the plantation house, and you end up hearing a voice, another person other than yourself, with Virgil, one of the best NPCs in the entire game, and you have genuine hope that you will actually survive this. And keep in mind, the finale, the plantation house, is difficult. You really have to work for it because there's no genuinely good spot inside or out. So when you finally see those gates explode and you see your friendly neighborhood hillbilly Virgil, it's an amazing feeling, and you just book it to the boat and you either win or lose, and it's a really, really satisfying ending to a little bit, I would say. You know what? I'm going to say it right now. Swamp Fever is honestly underrated and is a pretty decent map in my opinion. I would say that this is the very end of mid / the beginning of decently good maps. Swamp Fever, honestly, after all these years, I think it was a little too harsh to you. I think you are a genuinely good map. Okay, everybody, the final 5. Coming up next on the list is going to be Dead Air. Now, the reason why I put Dead Air so high up on this list is not just because I like the single-player version of Dead Air. I just genuinely think that out of all the versus maps in the entire list that we've gone over so far, none of them have really had that oomph factor, other than maybe Swamp Fever because I just gave it to it. But like Swamp Fever, I'm still like kind of on the fence about because that recent decision was new. So I'm going to say that the first one I know definitively is a really solid map for versus is Dead Air. Dead Air is 5 chapters long, has really good map design and gameplay, it has really good flow, and the map is not exactly easy, but it's not exactly hard either. I feel like I'm playing single player if I was on one of the higher difficulties such as advanced mode or expert. All I just have to do is be a little bit more careful, and then occasionally I get to rotate and play as a special infected. Overall, the game mode doesn't impact the map that significantly, and I just feel like I'm playing a slightly harder version of the normal campaign. See, and that's what should happen. All these other campaigns played significantly different when you're playing with sentient enemy players. But Dead Air and then the other remaining 4 just play like a normal campaign. The game mode doesn't impact the map so drastically that all of a sudden becomes a difficulty spike or becomes a problem. Instead, just makes the map feel more inclusive and allows more people to play together in a lobby. Instead of playing with a team of 4, it's a play session between 8 friends. I gotta respect Dead Air for that. Well, I will say, Dead Air, I would really appreciate if you just didn't set up the metal detector all the fucking time. That would be a nice bonus. Okay, next is going to be NSenr. Now, NSenr is one of my personal favorites. This is one of the very first maps I ever played in Left 4 Dead, and it's a really good map for a variety of different reasons, including versus, especially all the fun spots that you can have for interaction. Not even necessarily insta-kill spots, but just these really well-designed, they're almost like mini battle arenas, where there's certain parts of a map where I can see, like, yeah, I can see why that they decided to make this. One of the few day maps in Left 4 Dead, so it's extremely vibrant and very beautiful to look at. I love the way that the map feels. The map plays great. It's very well balanced for both special infected and survivors, but they both have their own equal opportunities for regularly high-skilled gameplay moments, where, for example, the most infamous one that everybody knows if they play Left 4 Dead, the very first chapter on that windowsill. That little windowsill where a charger can just insta-kill you and run off the entire building with your corpse is one of the most satisfying things you can do. And as a charger, you can eliminate the entire team that way. If you get a collateral effect, you will kill everybody it's so satisfying to have happen. It's even kind of fun, honestly, as a survivor, because you get that, like, it's such a famous spot that you anticipate it. You get the mild anxiety, but it's kind of fun because you're like, ooh, I wonder if I'm going to die today or not. It's funny. You actually anticipate it in a good way. It's like, ooh, am I going to be able to get the play here and survive? Or am I going to get the play here and kill this guy? You don't really know. It's always a coin flip, and so it's kind of exciting. It's a fun map. It keeps me entertained. It keeps me on my tippy toes. It makes me have to think. I like things that make me have to think because I very easily can get distracted, and I like how that this map keeps me engaged. It makes me focus on the current goal, the current activity. And I'm not thinking of something from the past or the future. I am in the now. That's what life is. That's feelings. That's immersion. That's being in the moment. And this map creates that for me on all fronts. I love NSenr. Okay, guys, for the next map, this is going to be one of my all-time favorites, Dark Carnival. I love this map. I also love it in versus too. Now, although I love it a little bit more in single player, but it's still a really damn good map. This map is fun. It's fun, it's vibrant, it's balanced, it's also chaotic at the same time. It's a perfect mixture of the chaotic and balanced nature of video games, where sometimes it's just bullshit and it's fun because it's bullshit. And there's also some times where it's really, really neck and neck and it's a really close game. And it's actually too balanced at times where you just kind of have a game going on and on and on forever. Nobody's going to lose, so it goes on for like 30 minutes unnecessarily. Talking about this map for hours. But the main takeaways is that I love how that it's a 5-chapter map, so it goes on for decently long. There's no BS gameplay mechanics other than just the fact that it's just difficult at times. The game doesn't kill you from the environments. The game doesn't kill you from BS random logic with the spawns, or the fact that the special infected or the survivors get a one-way advantage. The game is balanced in terms of your skill level. There's tricks that you can perform where you can end up having little shortcuts that you can make as both the survivors and the special infected. You can use gameplay knowledge to be able to unlock secrets that you wouldn't have actually known before. You can end up taking so many different approaches on Dark Carnival and still be victorious at the end of the day if you know what you're doing. The map is variety driven based off of your skill. When the map exceeds all expectations, when you end up making your own fun. When the gameplay isn't even necessarily mandatory anymore, it's just a template for what you can come up with. That is what gameplay is all about. Freedom. I didn't have to look at all my old videos to know that Dark Carnival is one of the maps that I play the most in Left 4 Dead. I can play any game mode that I want and it would work on that map. It doesn't have to end up being map specific for what I do in Dark Carnival. I can just do anything. The knowledge that I've gotten from Mythbusting Mondays, I can end up testing a whole bunch of cool gameplay mechanics. I can use different mods on there like Rayman, still have it functionally work because the map is just a great enough sandbox that really any game mode functions on it well. Dark Carnival is a template for good game design, and that's why it's fun, is it works with pretty much anything that you can think of. Guys, this one here is a fan favorite, and it's definitely a favorite of mine. This is The Parish. I love this map. It is so close to being a perfect map. It's got incredible story, incredible gameplay mechanics. It's perfectly paced. It's got skill gaps. It's got chaotic moments. It's got some BS funny things that you can do because there's some glitches that are still left in the game, which is such a better on-disc ending map than Blood Harvest ever was. I love The Parish. It's a top 2 map for me in all regards, not only in versus, but just in the base game. The Parish is one of the best video game things that you can do ever. Absolutely adore the bridge finale. The bridge finale is one of the only few running finales. You don't camp. You have to seek out rescue. It's not coming to you. You have to go to it. Otherwise, you will lose. And that's fun. You have to actually put yourself on the line in such a risky situation to be able to seek out your rescue. Holes in the middle. There's death ledges on the sides. There's also the possibility that a tank can end up hitting a flying car towards your face, and you will have to either duck it, jump over it, or just take the hit, because it's such a cramped ass, narrow bridge. And it's just an intense fight the entire way through. I feel like I'm in a boss battle. So much adrenaline pumping through my veins, especially at the very end. Right after I defeat the tank, and I see the text saying, "Rescue has arrived, get aboard," and there's that infamous music playing, and you're just booking it to the helicopter, and you still are not entirely safe, because when you jump down, there's so many spawns that the special infected can take, so the survivors normally are not completely scot-free yet. And so the special infected are camping there, and they're waiting for you. You'll have a jockey and a hunter just like ready to pounce you at any second. They're ready just to stick the landing. You don't know who wins until the game is over. Versus Left 4 Dead on the Parish is one of the best gameplay experiences you could ever have. Now, finally, everybody, at the very end of the video here, we are down to one map left. Map is always playable if you do a public queue for versus. Everyone knows it, everyone loves it, and it's the starting ground for everything that Left 4 Dead stands for. Gentlemen, this is No Mercy. The best and a perfect map for versus mode. No Mercy is a perfect zombies map. It feels like I'm playing in The Walking Dead. I'm in an abandoned city at night. There is nobody around. I'm in a populated area that's somehow now just crawling with zombies and no other human beings left other than the people that I am standing next to. And these special infected that are running around trying to kill me are also super intelligent, smart players that have been playing the game for decades, so they know how to whoop my ass if they really want to. So I need to equally as much whoop their ass. And so it's a really good neck-and-neck fight for survival. This map very rarely ends up having landslide victories, so it's constant back and forth. One person wins a round, another wins a round, and they're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and then finally you have the finale on the rooftop of No Mercy Hospital. Playing on this finale leads to some epic fucking shit. People will end up doing anything to kill each other. Chargers will charge off of the map trying to get you. Survivors will pull off bunny hop tactics that you will never seen before and think that they're superhumans and can actually fly. People will end up bringing out the best qualities in each other during this. It looks like a giant UFC fight that is in the neck-and-neck battles of the final round taking place. Only God knows who will win this game, but I can tell you this, is that regardless if you win, lose, if you get an epic clutch in the game, if you get kicked from the game, if you disconnect from the game, if you end up managing to meet somebody and they become your brand new best friend in the game, you at the end of the day are doing one thing: making memories. And that's what life is about, feelings and memories, and you will always do that on No Mercy. There's nothing wrong I can say about No Mercy. I honestly think it's perfect. I literally have nothing bad to say about No Mercy. The only thing I can just say is that I wish I played more of it sooner. Genuinely. It's one of the few video game things that I am purely blindly nostalgic for, but even recently I have been having some epic memories having on there. So I don't even know if it's entirely nostalgia. I just believe that this is a great video game template for something that you can do, that even if it's just one map for one game mode circumstance, it's enough to want to make me keep coming back. I love playing versus mode on No Mercy. It's one of the best gaming experiences that I've ever had in my entire life. But yeah, guys, that is going to be it here for today's video, and I do truly hope you guys ended up enjoying it. If you did, please consider dropping a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and all that beautiful stuff. I had to play so many versus games over the span of several weeks and end up dealing with vote to kicks and disconnects and people talking shit, so I had so many crazy things set me back, but I also had a lot of fun. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of my friends. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody that played versus with me. So shout outs to Dan/Dr. Zed, Drages, Tyler. All of you guys have been very helpful, especially given in this particular circumstance, because I wouldn't be able to play a versus game on some of these maps without you guys, because nobody plays them. So thank you. I just want to say thank you so much. I wouldn't be able to make this video without you. And thank you to the viewer that's watched all the way up until this point. You're the reason I make these videos and do what I do, and I just want to say thanks. In today's video, we are going to be ranking all the car textures from worst to best. So we're going to start off at the number 69 spot, where my favorite one is going to end up being the red car.
Wait, that actually worked? Hello everyone, DugTyler here, the new owner of the Black Ninja 797 channel. I even have support of other community members in the takeover of this channel. As we can see, Globarsko over here.
Yeah, I'm happy that Tyler is taking over channel, and I'm not being first to say that though. Okay, can you put the gun down now?
And even Dan, who unfortunately couldn't be here for reasons.
Oh, is this thing on? This thing better be on. I started my own cooking show, did all that shit. I've become a successful millionaire. This channel is going to be about cooking with explosives. So, First episode is making explosive cheeseburgers. Step 1 is get your ingredients for the cheeseburger. Step 2, place cheeseburger on top of barrel. Fuck. 3, soak that bitch in gasoline. You're gonna need a lot of gasoline. Once you're done pouring gasoline, put some fireworks on it. Make it a really nice pop in your mouth, if you know what I mean. Step 4? Blow the fucker to high hell. Why not? We don't live long. Might as well enjoy life to the fullest, right?
From now on, I will be moving forward from Left 4 Dead content and will be exclusively uploading Back 4 Blood content to the channel, because as we all know, this game is alive and well. I'm telling you guys, this is going to be great. I have so many fresh ideas for videos. In fact, today I will be ranking every Swarm PvP map in the game. So, let's load into a game of Swarm and get some background gameplay. As we all know, this game is very alive and well, so this should take no time at all.
5 minutes later.
Come on, why is this taking so long? I have so many other things I could be doing right now.
1 hour later.
Well, I just got back from feeding my family of 4 and... Oh my god, I'm still not into a game of Swarm yet? Looks like we're gonna have a change of plans. Wait, Globrisco, what's wrong with you?
I just want to go home.
So guys, in today's video we are going to be ranking every gun in Back 4 Blood. Now, in Fort Hope we have access to every gun. Wait a minute, where are the legendary weapons? And how am I supposed to rank these guns when they're just the default tier? Their damage values change with every tier. How am I supposed to give a proper ranking with all these weapons? And like I said, I don't even have access to the legendary ones. Oh man, no matter. I'm sure I can come up with something else. Come on, Globrisco, there's got to be something. I mean, I don't want to have kidnapped you for nothing. Come on, what can I do? What can I do? Oh wait, I think I've got it. I think I've got it. In today's video, I am going to be ranking every car model in Back 4 Blood. Alright, well, it's time to load up into a mission of campaign. Wait, what's... Hey, what's going on? No, stop! Stop!
Oh, thank God it was just a nightmare. Oh, thank God. Sweet baby Jesus. Oh, thank God. Alright. You know what? I think I need to play some video games to calm down. I'm gonna boot up Left 4 Dead. The most superior of all the zombie games out there. Okay. Yeah. Thank God it was just a dream. Today's ranking video, I am ranking basically everything in Left 4 Dead 2 from worst to best. For the last 3 years on this channel, I have fundamentally ranked and talked about every subject matter in Left 4 Dead. So as we basically wrap up Left 4 Dead 2, I want to end up having fundamentally kind of like a final hoorah for the Left 4 Dead rankings. And so I thought it'd be fun if we just ranked literally everything we have talked about for the last 3 years. So what I decided to do was I decided to end up looking at my old ranking videos from when I first started them up until now, which by the way, thank you guys so much for the support on those videos, because when I look back on those, Sometimes I honestly don't know how you guys watch those. But yeah, I basically took a trip down memory lane and looked at the playlist, which if you guys want to see all the old ranking videos in their original form, there will be a link down below in the description. But basically I decided that I would take pretty much most of those videos, not all of them, but most of them, and end up just putting them in a giant compilation from worst to best. I'm only going to be talking about the stuff that is specifically found in-game for Left 4 Dead, and not the stuff that's found outside of Left 4 Dead, or is only just related to Left 4 Dead, but is a different game altogether. Now with all that being said, guys, let's take every aspect of Left 4 Dead and end up ranking them from worst to best, and see why we all love this game so much. Alrighty guys, so coming in at the very first spot, this is going to be the menu backgrounds. This is a subject that I talked about kind of in an artistic style a few months ago. It's something I wanted to give appreciation for, but to be honest, at this point, we've all probably just decided to ignore it subconsciously because we've seen it so many times, but it is at least worth acknowledging at the very bottom of the list. And now back to back, I'm going to end up listing the game mode icons, the sprays, and also the loading screens, because these all fall within the same categories of artistic aspects of the game, and there's really nothing much to say about them other than that they look cool. Next on the list is going to be the Carnival games that are on Dark Carnival. There's only 3 of them, and they are fun novelties, but they are very infrequently used, and they are just mostly for show. Next is going to be the game's NPCs, such as Virgil. These guys can end up making the game quite fun and very novel, with Virgil and Church Guy being 2 of my favorites. Next is jukebox songs. Jukebox songs I don't listen to too often in Left 4 Dead, but when I do decide to play them, I really do like the selection of songs that you can get. You can get anywhere from Midnight Rider songs all the way up until a Portal Easter egg, where you end up getting the song Still Alive. Next, I decided to list the cutscenes. These are going to be things such as the intros of both games, and they're really badass and always a treat to watch. I especially love the one from the second game. It has one of my favorite all-time quotes, which is from Nick, which is, "I have not come this far to die now," and I still will always love that line. Next, we have in-game tips and then in-game challenges. They're very similar, although I do like the challenges a little bit more because they're technically for stats' sake, and you can end up showing off or just bragging to your friends just because. Now we have what I like to call throwable objects, because there's really not a name for these things. This is going to be like gasoline cans, propane tanks, and oxygen tanks. These are the things that you just find in the environment that you can use to your advantage. Next on my list, I have dynamic events. Really, the only one I care about is the plane crash on Dead Air. Otherwise, the other ones are just kind of a given. Slightly higher on the list in comparison to the jukebox songs is going to be the Midnight Rider songs. Midnight Rider songs such as One Man Band, Midnight Ride, and All I Want for Christmas Is to Kick Your Ass are some really fun songs to listen to. It's my own personal preference, but I do believe it should be higher on the list. Now I have voting options. Now I know what some of you are going to say. A lot of you are going to have voting to kick PTSD, and you're probably going to end up saying that this should be at the very bottom. I understand that. I know that this is heavily abused, but the system itself has a lot of great voting options minus that particular one, such as changing difficulty, change the map, reset the game, etc. So we can't end up combining all of those with vote to kick. That is why it's higher on the list, although I do feel your guys' pain. I played Versus recently for a Versus ranking, so I know how you guys feel. Next is going to be rescue vehicles. This is something that we take for granted, but it's still a very fun and critical aspect of the game. Next on the list is special infected music. Special infected music is something that I have gotten used to while playing Left 4 Dead for so long, but it's still one of my favorite things because of the immersion it brings. It's crazy how a single piano key or orchestra can end up making you feel dread. Next on my list is going to be game mode difficulties. I believe that all the game mode difficulties are different enough from each other that I should just have this be its own separate spot on the list rather than clump it together with, like, let's say the voting options. Next is going to be safe room / safe room locations. Some safe rooms are better than others, but without safe rooms, we just would not have Left 4 Dead. So we need to appreciate the safe rooms for what they are, because without them, we would not have the game. Now, this might be a hot take. I was just as surprised as you guys when I decided to put these here on the list. But comparing this to everything else across the board, these two things just do not match up, and I think that they are deserving of being at this spot in the list. Back to back, this is the common normal zombies and the uncommon special zombies such as the Fallen Survivor. I know some of you guys are wondering, why am I putting the zombies so low in a zombie game? It's a critical aspect of the game, so why would I end up not putting it higher up on the list? I understand that, and let me explain. Number 1, the special infected are more important to Left 4 Dead than the other zombies are. The other zombies are insignificant in comparison. Second of all, Left 4 Dead is more than just a zombie game at this point. It's a universe. People love other aspects of the game other than just the zombies. I say this is because you could end up installing a mod, for example, that makes the zombies literally anything else, and you're just shooting at ads. You're not specifically shooting at zombies anymore, and people can still have fun. Of course, the normal common zombies and the uncommon zombies are going to be a fundamental aspect of Left 4 Dead, and that's not going to change anytime soon. But when you compare the common and the uncommon zombies up to everything else, literally everything else, they just don't end up deserving a higher spot on the list. Let me ask you guys a question to drive this point home. Would you rather play something like tank mode, where you're running around from 4 different tanks on a map and trying to end up getting to the finish line before they can kill you? Or would you rather just play a game mode where it's nothing but common zombies and you just try to play like normal Left 4 Dead? Here's also another thing to think about if you're still hesitant. Do you really want to play a game mode where most of the zombies are the Riot Gear zombies, or the CETA agent zombies, or the fallen survivors? Most of the uncommon zombies are annoying and the common ones are just boring, so I feel like if we got rid of them and only had just special infected, I don't think people would miss the other ones too much. Okay guys, next on my list is glitches. Just glitches, period. Something that would be that you're not supposed to technically do within the game, but it's still within the game, so you decide to do it anyways just to screw around and have fun. This can be like the map glitches, god mode glitches, flying glitches, etc. And these are all tremendously fun if you are in a certain mood. One of my favorites to do personally is the grenade launcher glitch, where you fling somebody up into a spot they shouldn't be, just because it's just simply fun. Or sometimes glitches can be straight up nightmare fuel, such as this one that was found online by Lincoln Duck, which is where his game glitched and his textures got replaced with a jockey face, and this looks absolutely horrifying. Next is going to be Easter eggs. This can be the Easter eggs that are tied to achievements, or just Easter eggs that are just something that you find that are a reference to some other pop culture thing. I, for example, think that an Easter egg could be anywhere from the golden crowbar that's hidden in the one shack on The Last Stand, or it can even be something as simple as a piece of dialogue that you find written on the wall that's a reference to something else that you know. Now I want to talk about voice lines. Voice lines can end up being so famous that they are even sometimes popular or known outside of their little community from where they came from. And they can even stand the test of time, where they are remembered for years. And I think that Left 4 Dead, in terms of pop culture, has some very famous lines. I even mentioned one earlier back at the beginning of the video, talking about the one that I saw from the trailer that was said by Nick, and I still remember it years later. The quote can be funny, the quote can be badass, the quote can just be flat out stupid, such as all the Keith lines that Ella says. There's really nothing specific that exactly makes a good quote. Sometimes people just take one and they'll roll with it, kind of like a meme, and it's just a matter of time to see what is the next popular thing that people pick up next. Next is going to be achievements. It can be any game, but if there's achievements, I will go for them. I am a achievement hunter. I am a grinder. I very much love playing games for all that they're worth. And one of the things you guys know me for the most is my achievement grinding, because those are some of my most popular videos. So I know that you guys are achievement hunters as well. There's just something satisfying about a little trophy or a little badge on your profile basically saying that you did it. You basically did something that was out of your way, either for the sake of novelty or something that was very challenging. But the point is that you made the game last for all it was worth, and you did something fun and memorable. And that little badge or that little tick or that little achievement on your profile, now every single time you look at it, it's a memory. And that's why I love achievements so much, is because they give me the ability to relive my memories free of charge. Next is going to end up being drops, such as med kits, Molotovs, pain pills, bio bombs, pipe bombs, adrenaline shots, etc. These things are just a nice added bonus to the guns when you're killing zombies. I love being able to burn them with fire or knock them off of a building by making them chase a bio bomb because they're stupid and they don't know what they're doing. I love blowing them up with pipe bombs. And I just also like the ability to run fast with adrenaline, or be able to pop pain pills really quickly, or even defib my teammates back to life if we make a mistake. I like how that the game is more strategy based more than meets the eye, because it's not just about shooting guns. you also have to be smart and use the equipment that you find within the map. Now I want to talk about panic events or crescendo events, whatever you would like to call them. Basically the mini events that you have in the middle of a campaign chapter where it's like activate this random task to proceed at the risk of alerting zombies. Some are better than others. I do have some of my favorites. But when it comes to the panic events, they all serve a purpose, which is a rise and a climax. So basically, when you end up having a campaign, it will build till you have a climax, which is usually the panic event. And typically, shortly thereafter, you will end up being in the safe room. So it's usually get out of the spawn, go eventually until you reach a panic event, get to the safe room about 4 or 5 times on average, and then eventually you'll have some sort of finale. Okay, now we are going to be talking about the director, specifically the director paths, which was one of my most recent ranking videos. The reason why I use the term director paths and not the director just as a whole is because the director is more than just spawning in a certain amount of zombies in a certain area and just trying to basically throw off the player. The director does quite a lot of things, but I specifically want to talk about the pathing that he does, because that is something that I feel like changes the game the most. So it's one thing to have certain things spawn in, but it's an entirely different thing when the director changes the map. There are some times where the director will just flat out block certain areas and make you go another way, and that's the thing I want to talk about. I like when the director can make me just all of a sudden be like, oh hey, you know that area that I was going to go? Well, I guess I can't now because all of a sudden there's a wall in the way, or there's a staircase in the way, or there's not enough players alive to go this path for the director to spawn in this option. The director gives the game novelty, one of the best things a video game can have. No play session in Left 4 Dead is ever going to be the same. It keeps me from getting bored, and it makes it where I can always be ever improving, because I'm never going to be able to get into a pattern of being able to memorize spawns and being able to get the same loot over and over and over again. I have to work with what I'm given. So it's very, very fun that the fact that I'm never going to basically be perfect at this game, so I can always end up trying to get as close as I can. Okay, now this might be another one of the hot takes that I have throughout today's video, but it also is going to end up making sense once I explain it. So this is going to end up being just all the melee weapons. For me personally, I was never the biggest fan of the melee weapons. I played Left 4 Dead 1 without any melee weapons, and I got by just fine. For me, I would just rather end up having a gun or the unlimited shoving back, because that's just my playstyle. I like to run and gun, not really run and stab. And the melee weapons, even though I have been learning about them and being able to get better at them as I've been playing this game for the last couple of years, I've been learning about their swing patterns and tick rate and everything from you guys, I just still am not the biggest melee fan, and that's okay. Everyone's got their niche, everyone's got their favorite weapon to use. I mean, I do have a couple favorite melee weapons of mine, but it's just not my favorite aspect of Left 4 Dead. And I think that that's okay, but you guys can also let me know in the comment section down below where you would have put the melee weapons, because I know that some of you end up really loving them, and they're a favorite part of the game for you. Now, unlike the melee weapons, something I am a massive fan of is going to be the console commands. I love this about playing the game on PC. I used to end up playing the game on Xbox back when I was younger. I had the Xbox 360 and I played the Xbox 360 version of both Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2. As I got older and I was able to afford my first gaming PC, one of the games I repurchased was Left 4 Dead 2, because I knew that you could download mods for it on Steam. And I loved the ability to download mods and be able to make my game feel very sandboxy. So when I found out that also just the way that the engine is, and the way that Left 4 Dead is as a game, and I realized that you could do whatever you want by just knowing basically the right code to input, kind of like an old school game back on the PS2, the original Xbox, and the GameCube era where you had cheat codes. And I very much enjoy just screwing around with no clip, or spawning in weapons, or putting in a whole bunch of tanks for no reason just to try to run away from them and kill my teammates. Just funny little random things like that. Console commands allow me to scratch my impulsive creative itch that I have. I love how that Left 4 Dead is a really great base game, and with a combination of the Steam Workshop and console commands, I can make this game also my own game at the exact same time. Okay guys, so now we're going to be moving on to the game modes. Now instead of lumping all the game modes in together as one pile, I am going to rank them individually within reason. So I'm going to rank Scavenger, Versus, and Survival all separately, but the mutations will all just be one single thing. So when I end up saying mutations, I am referring to everything later on in the list. But the first game mode that I would like to address, because it's different enough, is going to end up being scavenger mode. One of the things the Steam community really hasn't done exactly as well as Valve, in my opinion, is make new game modes. So with game modes in Left 4 Dead, we have the main few, which is going to be the normal campaign versus scavenge and also survival mode. And then there's of course the mutations, but those are kind of all like their own separate mini game modes. But the main 4 is going to end up being the ones I priorly listed. Scavenge is the weakest of those 4. Scavenge is when you have Left 4 Dead sandbox, but done wrong. Because what happens is that instead of just trying to end up doing the best aspects of Left 4 Dead, which is survive, you are forced to end up being OBJ heavy, or objective heavy. Games struggle when the survival aspect of the game is hindered by trying to complete a blind objective. And so when you make that into a game mode, it's no wonder that Scavenge has no lobbies to fill because nobody's literally playing it. The most successful games are where their OBJs, or their objectives that you can end up completing, are already formed around the idea of what the player was wanting to do to begin with. The player doesn't want to have to end up risking their life to complete the objective. The objective should just happen by the way that they play the game already. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, what's going to happen is that everyone's going to end up feeling like their teammates will never pull their weight, and if they die because of that, then they're going to assume that their death is related to the fact that their teammates didn't do a certain action or air quote put in enough effort as much as you were. I bet you have all had this thought. I could have survived if I didn't have to do the objective and could just simply defend myself. But I can't because my teammates all have the same idea as me and we need to end up getting more points to win, so if we don't play the objective, we will lose. So because my teammates won't play the objective and I am forced to, that causes my death, meaning my death is responsible because of my teammates not caring enough. But despite talking a lot of crap about scavenger mode, if you get the right circumstances, it's actually really fun. It's just that typically you have to end up playing with friends. Next is going to be all the mutations game modes. The mutations game modes are fundamentally better than just scavenge as a whole, but they're definitely not as good as the other two that we're going to be listing here in a second, which is going to be survival and versus mode. So when it comes to the mutations, I have some of my favorites being the ones related to the special infected, so like Hunter Barrage, Tank Mode, Tank Run, etc. Basically anything that's kind of like a game of cat and mouse where you're just basically chasing somebody. Those are my favorites. I love the idea of either fighting a boss or running away from a shit ton of bosses because it's fun. It gives me a mild adrenaline boost because I'm fighting for my life. Now this next game mode is my favorite other than single player. This is going to be survival mode. I know that people like versus more, but I think that survival mode is my personal favorite. I love the idea of just holding out as long as you can. The idea of having basically everything and being able to play with at least 3 of your other friends is just fun to me. I love the idea of last as long as you can. Plus, it also gives me a really good representation of my actual skill level, because if I have everything at my disposal and I'm pretty much up against every single possible threat in the entire game, if I can see a timer of how long that I lasted with those resources and those enemies, I can actually gauge my proper skill level. This is why I loved going for all the gold medals and trying to get the killing spree achievements, because I was able to show that I mastered multiple maps and basically was pretty much the best at the entire game, or at least one of the best. Next we've got Versus Mode. Now I played Versus Mode again recently for a separate ranking video, and Versus is not exactly my personal favorite because of how toxic it can get. I'm just way too old for this shit about just arguing over who has better superiority in the pixel simulator online with strangers. It's just not my thing, and trust me, I can get very competitive if I want to. I've played FPS games for the last decade of my life, and it's only recently I started to take a break from them and go back to the single player games I used to love, because of the fact that I am just kind of burnt out on them. So Versus does have its place. It is very fun, especially if you have an entire lobby full of your friends. I think that Left 4 Dead Versus mode, honestly, the peak is when you end up having an entire lobby full of people that you know, or at least is not toxic, and you treat it kind of like an Among Us lobby, where it's just like a mixture of trolling that's healthy for you, and just kind of having lighthearted, good fun. It's competitive, yes, and it's trolly, yes, but it's mostly about fun at the end of the day and just having a good time. Does that make sense for an analogy? Like, treat it like an Among Us lobby, guys. Treat it like an Among Us lobby. And then, of course, the best game mode in all Left 4 Dead is the single-player campaign, or at least the cooperative campaign as well. Playing the base campaign with your friends or solo is just as much fun either way. I love the idea of going from No Mercy all the way up into the last stand and just playing for hours and hours and hours on end. The director helps, playing with friends helps, playing by yourself is okay, however it is that you choose to do. But Left 4 Dead will always be its best in its original form, where it's just a campaign, horror game, FPS, survival masterpiece. Alright, so now we're moving on to the last 5 things. Now these last 5 things are my personal favorite things in all of Left 4 Dead. I think that for a lot of you guys it also is as well, and 1 or 2 may be interchangeable, but I would like to believe they would all still be within the realm of these top 5, just in a slightly different order. So let's do the very last 5 things and see what is truly the best aspects about Left 4 Dead. Coming in at our number 5 spot, this is all the maps. All the maps from No Mercy all the way up until The Last Stand. These maps are going to be some of the best that you'll ever see in video game history. They are great design, great atmosphere, and they are overall some of the most fun experiences you will ever have in your life. You can use them on pretty much all the other game modes in the game other than just single player and cooperative campaign. Some work better than others, but you can work them into scavenger, survival mode, mutations, etc. They are great for also sandbox purposes. If you want to end up using them just to goof around, you can do that. If you also want to use these for outside of the game, like I know some people will use the assets of Left 4 Dead to make online videos all the time. And I think that these maps are staples in video games. I'm pretty sure if you showed anybody any generic Left 4 Dead map, somebody would know exactly what that is. Even if they don't play the game, they will at least know. These maps are what make the universe of Left 4 Dead. These maps will always be memorable in my eyes. I'm never going to forget these even if I move on from Left 4 Dead, because these maps were just so much fun when I grew up with the game, and they're still fun now. They are something that is to be remembered because they end up giving you a experience, they give you a memory, and they give you something to end up making you happy. And then the next spot here is going to be all the bullet guns. So the assault rifles, the sniper rifles, the shotguns. I really think that pretty much every bullet gun in Left 4 Dead is extremely fun to use. It's really not a bad gun, minus like, I guess like 2. I really don't care for the bolt action snipers that were added within the Last Stand update. But that's like the only guns I won't regularly use. Every other gun in Left 4 Dead I will at least give a chance, and that's a really good track record. In fact, out of all my Left 4 Dead ranking videos, the ranking of the guns was the #1 supported video out of all my ranking videos. It had the most amount of likes, the most amount of views, the most amount of comment interactions. Everyone loved that gun video. Now that could have just been a fluke, but I think not actually. I think that just a lot of people love the gunplay of Left 4 Dead, and that's why a lot of people were looking it up. Because the guns in Left 4 Dead just feel crispy. They feel nice. They feel really fun to use. And you might notice I keep using that word here, fun. These last few things I've talked about, these subject matters, the adjective I always describe them with, at least, is fun. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel overpowered. Damn it, I'm overpowered and I'm proud of it. Okay, guys, now these top 3, oh my god, this was so neck and neck and neck, but like, keep in mind is that this is just my humble opinion, but honestly, these are interchangeable, so I might honestly just change my opinion like 5 minutes later after I record this video, but here it goes. The number 3 thing in Left 4 Dead, even though technically there's going to end up being only 2 that are like within the actual game still here on the list, this is going to be all the survivors. Zoe, Lewis, Francis, Bill, Coach, Nick, Rochelle, Ellis, all 8 of them. And yes, I do mean it with Rochelle too. All 8 of them are amazing characters. They're not perfect, and some will end up being better than others. I know that there's some fan favorites, and everyone can pretty much agree that Rochelle's the least of those. But I can tell you this, is that I would rather have all 8 Left 4 Dead characters any day of the week than most generic video game characters. Okay, guys, now these last 2 things, at least one of them is going to be technically outside of the game, and you'll understand what I mean later. It's one of the few exceptions I made throughout this list because I had to draw the line somewhere. But coming in for the number 2 spot in general, and the number 1 spot of just all the things within the game, what makes Left 4 Dead such a great-ass video game, this is going to be the Special Infected. Any of them. All the Special Infected are memorable, they're unique, they're overpowered, they're scary, they're fun. They are some of the best creative zombies you will ever see. The Walking Dead scares the shit out of me to a certain degree just from the normal zombies. Can you imagine if there was a real-life Left 4 Dead where if they had the Walking Dead type of level of makeup for the Special Infected? Oh my god, that would be horrifying. Can you imagine a real-life jockey or a witch or a tank? The only reason that the special infected music hits the way it does is because of the way that these things are designed. Have you seen some of the cut art for the jockey, for example? This is horrifying. I love the maps, I love the guns, and I love the survivors. But when there's no special infected, something feels missing. And there's a reason for that. Is because the special infected is what makes Left 4 Dead different than every other generic zombie game. I can tell you this. Recently, when I played Japanese Left 4 Dead, because I had the video ready, it's just not out yet until we hit 4,000 subscribers. When I played with the Japanese characters, and I can't understand Japanese, and they just felt like just generic NPCs because of that since I couldn't understand what they were saying, I didn't really necessarily have a problem with that. I didn't really have a bad impact by not knowing what was going on with the characters. So it's not the survivors necessarily being missing. The maps are all the exact same, but there's some maps I can live without. It's not like I love every map. And I also can live without certain guns. But if I have no special infected to kill, and it's just the commons, Left 4 Dead is just like any other generic zombie video game. The special infected is what is the key to Left 4 Dead's success. It's what makes the game work. But guys, even though we have addressed the special infected, I got one more thing that I would like to mention at the very end here for technically the #1 spot. The special infected were for the base game, but this is still very much Left 4 Dead. It's just minorly outside of it, especially also given the fact that because it's only on PC. But this is going to end up being the mods. Whether it be a gun, or a character, or a new game mode, or even a whole ass new map. Mods make Left 4 Dead 2 feel like a sequel. It makes it feel like Left 4 Dead 3. That's probably to a certain degree why Valve has to this day never released Left 4 Dead 3 or made Left 4 Dead 3, is because the mods for Left 4 Dead 2 are enough. Now yes, I would still love a Left 4 Dead 3 as much as anybody else, but with the community constantly updating the game, I can understand why Valve wouldn't need to, because why would you take the risk on making a potentially flopping sequel when your current game is already enough? People can basically make the sequel for you by doing it with the mods. I mean, we sort of keep the game already alive with the updates, so mods also are another layer upon that. As much as I love Left 4 Dead, I have already played the base game for all it's worth at this point. I have grinded the ever-living crap out of it for the last 3 years, and I have everything now. And so because I have everything, other than just my pure enjoyment and novelty from the game, I really have nowhere else to go unless I give myself something to do. And this is where mods are incredible. Mods keep me from getting bored. They allow me to be able to make the game feel new again. And as long as there is mods available frequently for Left 4 Dead 2, I will probably occasionally, every now and again, basically for the rest of my life, at least whether it be for my own enjoyment or maybe perhaps for a YouTube video, we'll revisit this game every so often, because there will always be something to do. But yeah, guys, with all that being said, this is basically it. This has been the conclusion of the Left 4 Dead ranking series. I have ranked everything from worst to best, even literally in today's video. This has been an amazing 3 years for this series, and I do truly hope you guys end up enjoying it. I never really ask for much when it comes to likes. But this video, since this is the very last one most likely, if we can please hit something crazy like 30 likes for this video, it would mean so much to me, and I'd be forever grateful. But yeah, guys, I hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers are ever going to see. Thanks for watching, guys. I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords. Jesus here. And you better have enjoyed that video there by the Eternal God Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!
Hey everybody, how goes it? My name's Dr. Zed or Dan, if you don't recognize this voice. Just like the last time, I'm just here to thank all of you guys for coming to the end of this 3-part journey of about, I would say, 20 hours worth of footage combined into 3 parts. So yeah, I'm just here to say thank you, and genuinely stunned that you're at this point in the video, or at the end of the video, I should say, but thank you nonetheless, and thank you for getting to 10,000 subs. That means never thought that I'd see this point on this channel that I work for, pretty much. But just wanted to say thank you, and The 10K sub trailer is out if you haven't already seen it. Please check it out. And the 10K sub is going to be really special. I promise. It is going to be a blast. So, thank you for making it to the end. Use code BlackNinja797 in the Epic Games and Fortnite item shop. And I will see you guys next time. Have a good night. Stay safe. And don't do drugs.